Chapter 187. In the immortal fishing house, Sima Ping paced back and forth. The more she thought about it, the more uneasy she became. Suddenly, she turned her head and said, "No, I'm worried." Zhang Yinluo frowned. "Sun Lang has already said that he will help you investigate this matter. What else are you worried about? Just wait patiently." "Of course I'm worried. I've only known that Sun Lang for less than 2 days, and I don't even know what he does. How can I be at ease with him? You're his lover, so naturally you believe him. I'm not familiar with him." An uneasy expression appeared on Sima Ping's face. "Furthermore, that's my master. How can I be at ease?" Who's his lover?" Zhang Yinluo's face turned red as she shouted. "Don't listen to that woman, surnamed Zhao's nonsense." Sima Ping curled her lips and said, "If you don't have any thoughts about Sun Lang, why are you occupying the latrine? Sister Zhao wants to marry Sun Lang so much that she's going crazy." Zhang Yinluo coldly snorted. "I'm not fighting with her. She wants to marry Sun Lang. What does that have to do with me? Come and ask for my hand in marriage." TSK, tisk. Dongfang Xian did not let go of any opportunity to attack Zhang Yinluo. The girl put on a pure and unpretentious appearance, crossed her arms over her chest, and forcefully squeezed out the visual effect of her small chest, imitating Zhang Yinluo's tone. Say, you might not believe it, but it wasn't me who seduced Sun Lang. It was my chest that moved without permission. Sima Ping also looked at Zhang Yinluo's chest from the corner of her eyes. What a pair of sinful excess flesh, making Sun Lang unable to extricate himself, making Sister Zhao have a one-sided love. Might as well cut it off. Cut your head. Zhang Yinluo's face flushed red. She clutched her chest and said angrily, "I really don't know what you guys are thinking. We are all women. Why do you always talk about my chest?" A woman's self-worth and true beauty didn't lie in her appearance or body, but in her inner self and character. The so-called looks and breasts are just superficial standards and judgments used by stinky men to objectify us women. Why should we be obsessed with breasts and cater to them? We women should be strong and independent. TSK. Such a disgusting woman. Dongfang Xian squinted his eyes and said, "You gave birth to a pair of shameless breasts, yet you're just sitting there and talking without feeling any pain in your back. You're the one who's talking." Zhang Yinluo roared. "Do you know how troublesome it is to have such big breasts?" When he was in the sect, he would be looked at strangely by his fellow disciples. Sometimes when Master sees my chest, his mood will turn bad and he will bully me in different ways. In order to make it easier to move around and practice martial arts, she had to wrap her chest properly every morning. It was so hot. He was sweating, and it was very uncomfortable. I have endured this kind of life for more than 10 years. Finally, when I went to study in the Fire Nation, I was able to buy it. Before she could finish, she realized that 2 murderous gazes had landed on her body. She only heard Sima Ping reveal a sinister smile. Continue. If you hate breasts so much, give them to me, share them with me. I won't worry about this kind of trouble. Do you know how hard I worked when you were worrying about your breasts being too big? Just to increase the size of my chest by 1 inch, medicine, massage, acupuncture. This old lady wants to King use cupping." Zhang Yinluo was intimidated by that tragic aura and stammered, "What are you talking about? Breasts? How can I give you my breasts?" Ha. You can. Sima Ping raised her head, her eyes revealing a sinister light. "As long as I cut off your chest and graft it onto my chest, it will be done. In theory, it's possible. There's always a way. In short, I'll cut off your chest first." Saying this, Sima Ping pounced toward Zhang Yinluo's chest like a hungry tiger pouncing on its prey. "Give me more or less." Zhang Yinluo's roar reverberated through the entire immortal fishing house. Then, he raised his hand high up and chopped down with lightning speed. Sima Ping howled and squatted on the ground, clutching her head. With teary eyes, she said, Milk spirit is hitting me." Dongfang Xian stomped his feet as if he wanted to see the world in chaos. "You hit me. I want to tell Sun Lang, you hit me." You used your chest to hit Sima Ping's head. Zhang Yinluo raised his hand and revealed a gentle and virtuous smile. And Dongfang Xn obediently dodged to the side. No, nothing. After Ms. Zhang forced Dongfang Xin back, she placed her hands on her hips and said to Sima Ping, I really can't stand you. You were just saying that you were worried about your master, but in the blink of an eye, you became like this. Sima Ping's expression changed, and she jumped up. I almost forgot. I want to go to Marquis Jingan Manor and discuss this matter with older sister Zhao. Older sister Zhao is very capable and has a lot of ideas. The Marquis Manor is also very powerful. Most importantly, she and my master are old acquaintances. She will definitely help. I want to discuss this matter with her. Zhang Yinluo frowned, but shook his head in his heart. Sun Lang, you also have times when you think wrongly. This little girl has known you for less than 2 days and knows nothing about you. How can she be at ease and entrust her master's safety to you? Do you think everyone is like me? Ba ba ba. What do you mean? You speak as if I'm very stupid. Forget it. I don't have any position to keep her. Let her go to Marquis Jingan Manor. Anyway, it's very safe. And that young Miss Zhao is so devoted to you. To you, she's not an outsider. There's no difference whether she's there or here. Oomph. She made up her mind and nodded. All right, I'll send you over. Don't refuse, Sun Lang instructed me. Even though I respect your decision and way of thinking, but I still have to do my best to ensure your safety and personally hand you over to young Miss Zhao. In Marquis Jingan Manor, Zhao Fei Huang received the letter that was sent over by someone and opened it to take a look. This, after Su Qingwan obtained eldest young Miss's approval, she received the letter. Glancing at it, she could not help but roll her eyes. Water dragon. Feces, what does this fellow want to do? Young Miss Zhao put her hands together and smiled. As expected of young Miss Sunday, his ideas are endless and truly creative. The water dragon actually has this kind of usage. What kind of creative idea is this? Su Qingwan's expression was subtle. She could not help but think of that year in Marquis Jingan Manor, when Sun Lang threw out those cans of herring. It was simply earth-shattering, wailing like ghosts and howling like wolves. After that, the Marquis Manor directly dismantled that reception hall and the surrounding stone slabs and refurbished them. They also used large amounts of spices and finally managed to cover up that terrifying smell. And now, this fellow actually started to do this kind of deranged thing in public. Such a filthy thing simply made one's hair stand on end. Eldest young Miss recognized this fellow's true face. He's simply the #1 pervert in history. Quickly stay away from him, but really interesting, really fun. I really want to see the expressions of the people that young Miss Sun took care of. Young Miss Zhao snapped her fingers and revealed an interested smile. Older sister Su, make some arrangements and settle this matter. After that, prepare the carriage. I also want to go and take a look. Eldest young Miss Ah. Chapter 188. Although she was extremely unwilling and had all kinds of subtle feelings, Su Qingwan, who was a loyal dog, still carried out eldest Miss's orders to the letter. Marquis Jingan Fu's efficiency was extremely high. The water hose was ready-made, and in order to prevent it from catching fire, the Fu was equipped with several of them. One steward Su gave the order. The outer Fu steward brought people to the storehouse to bring out a large water hose with an extremely large capacity. It was shiny, and he ordered the Fu's carpenters to inspect it and test shot one. It was very useful, but this cart of excrement was a little difficult. Although the Marquis Fu had a large population and produced a large amount of grain reincarnation items every day, that smell inevitably made people despair. Su Qingwan and young Miss Zhao were as close as sisters and were loyal and devoted. How could she bear to see the eldest miss, who was as beautiful as a flower in jade, be suffocated by a little bit of filth? She was currently in a corner of the Marquis Fu, looking at the brand new water hose and looking at the cart of excrement that had just been dug out. Frowning, she used a silk handkerchief to cover her mouth and nose and took a step back. Even if the stewards found a cart of excrement with the best airtight seal, there was still a mysterious smell that constantly leaked out, causing people's expressions to change. Su Qingwan pondered for a moment and thought of a good idea. She waved her hand and called over the best carpenter in the Fu, instructing him to do this and that. So everyone watched as that carpenter brought his disciple to the water tank of the water hose and riveted it layer by layer with iron sheets transferred from the storehouse. They then wrapped large amounts of cotton, thick cloth, and spices until the water tank was tightly wrapped inside and out. Just as everyone was scratching their heads in confusion, Steward Su waved his hand again and said to pour that cart of excrement into the water tank. Everyone finally understood, and their gazes towards Steward Su became filled with shock. They developed even greater reverence and fear towards this steel-faced steward who was inseparable from eldest Mississippi. Su Qingwan sensed everyone's gazes and angrily rolled her eyes. Her displeasure towards Sun Lang naturally increased by several degrees. But after this round of torment, this matter was finally settled. This water hose, which was created by a famous craftsman and had an ingenious design and shape, stood there quietly, exuding a faint fragrance of spices. However, those who knew about it looked at it with eyes full of fear and dread, as if it was not a wooden object, but a mechanical tyrannosaurus that could spit out the final fire at any time. Housekeeper soon nodded in satisfaction. His gaze shifted as he called out to the few fellows with the most hateful gazes. You, and you will be responsible for carrying this thing in a while. When everything was done, Miss Zhao had already changed into beautiful clothes and retouched her makeup. Seeing that Butler Su was so well prepared, she hugged Su Qingwan with a smile and said, "Sister Su, you are so considerate. After Sun Lang sees it, he will definitely praise you. You have even considered privacy and safety. Who needs that fellow's praise? I really wanted to add a mechanism inside, so that when that Sun guy was controlling the water hose, the entire water tank would explode. It seems that I can really do that." Butler Sue's heart skipped a beat. However, at this moment, it was too late to say this. Eldest Miss was so shrewd. If he dragged the water hose back and modified it again, she would definitely see through the clues. Moreover, he would never deceive eldest Mississippi. How could he lie to her? What a pity, what a pity. Su Qingwan thought of Sun Lang's smiling face that deserved a beating. Just now, that devilish thought was growing wildly like vines. She really didn't know what kind of expression this crazy fellow would reveal when he was defeated by the moves he was good at. She missed such a good opportunity this time, but it didn't matter. There would definitely be a next time, because this fellow would definitely continue to think of ways to harm others. Housekeeper Su had clearly fallen into some kind of delusion, so much so that a silly smile appeared on her face. Zhao Fei Huang blinked her eyes, and her expression became meaningful. Big Sister Su is thinking about Sun Lang? Are you attracted to him? Sure enough, Su Qingwan was shocked and denied loudly. How was that possible? How could I like that kind of man? Miss Zhao was stunned for a moment. She covered her face and pretended to be sad. But I like him. Sister Su, if you say so, doesn't it mean that I have no taste? Sometimes, although she knew that the person in front of her was pretending, she still couldn't bear to see her sad appearance. Even if she was pretending, it was the same. Butler Su instantly became at a loss. He waved his hand and said, No, miss, I don't mean that. How should I say it? Zhao Fei Huang suddenly burst into laughter and reached out to hug Butler Su again. Her beautiful little face rubbed against her chest a few times. She laughed and said, Sister Su, you have to be careful. You said you were careless, but in the future, if you suddenly have a change of heart, I will laugh and tease you. What did she mean? Su Qingwan looked at the mysterious smile of her Mississippi. She didn't know why, but her heart suddenly beat heavily a few times. After everything was prepared, the Marquis Fu prepared 2 carriages. In order to keep it a secret, all the insignias of the Marquis Fu were removed. That water hose that was filled with special ammunition was also carried onto the other carriage. Several selected flying cannoneers solemnly stood guard beside the water hose. They had an important mission on their shoulders. Butler Sue helped Miss Zhao onto the carriage and then gave the order. A skilled person in the manor acted as the coachman. He cracked the whip, and with a thunderous sound, the horses neighed and pulled the carriage forward slowly. Other than a few people, no one knew what was in the carriage behind them. That was terror, that was despair. That was a madness that a normal person would never be able to imagine. Perhaps if everything went smoothly, it wouldn't be long before the greatest and most despairing event in the history of Mingzhou was about to take place. Not long after the two carriages left, Zhang Yinluo brought Sima Ping to the front of the Marquis Jingganfu. Coincidentally, the gatekeeper at the front door was the one who received Sun Lang and Zhang Yinluo during the demon weapon incident not long ago. He had also experienced the terrifying scene of the explosion of the herring and the sky changing color. Although he didn't know much about what happened that day and knew that this was a taboo in the Fu, at least he knew that this great aunt was a terrifying person who could throw feces in the Marquis Jingganfu and then escape unscathed. He immediately bowed and said with a fawning expression, Miss, you've come? May I ask what brings you here?" Zhang Yinluo said amiably, "This young lady is an old acquaintance of your eldest Mississippi. I brought her here. I'll have to trouble you to bring her in." That gatekeeper spoke quickly and said without thinking, "Io, you came at the wrong time. Just now, eldest Miss and Butler Sue left." "Left?" Zhang Yinluo's eyebrows jumped. "What did they go to do? We servants don't have the right to know what eldest Miss does." That gatekeeper said with a smile, "We only saw eldest Miss order people to carry a water hose onto the carriage." "Io, don't tell others. You're an important guest." So this lowly one spoke the truth. Zhang Yinluo nodded, but her woman's intuition faintly told her that this matter was not simple. Why did they have to carry the water hose on a carriage? Why did they have to carry it onto the carriage? She kept feeling that there was a conspiracy. What did this woman want to do? She thought for a moment and asked, "I wonder where your eldest Miss went." Chapter 189. Life was full of fun and variables. This was reflected in the fact that some things that were thought to be in the bag would often have accidents of various kinds. For example, when watching a movie, people thought that the heroine who would not die would die, and everyone would clamor to send a blade to the scriptwriter. For example, when playing a game, Hanzo on the opposite side said to leave it to fate, and everyone would clamor that he must have cheated. For example, when reading a book, there would often be a little unexpected change in the plot development, and everyone would clamor that the author must have torn the manuscript. So, calm down, calm down. You have to be calm. You have to be confident in life. You have to use your heart to appreciate the good intentions of the scriptwriter. You have to sincerely admire your opponent's superb skills, and you have to firmly believe that the author you like will not tear your manuscript. Then, you have to calmly accept your loss and wear your beloved little dress. Just like Sun Lang at this time. It was clearly planned. He just wanted to sneak out to do some dirty things behind his wife's back, and he still had time to go home for dinner at night. He wanted to do it as secretly as possible to ensure his reputation and image. He didn't even call out the most loyal thugs and henchmen. But why did they come out one by one? He said with a confused face, "Miss Zhao, I asked you to send a water hose and a cart of farm manure. Why did you come here yourself?" Miss Zhao's face changed slightly, and she said with an uneasy face, "Sun Lang, shouldn't I come?" Sun Lang's face was subtle, and he thought, if everything goes well tonight, I will become a super dirty person. "Why did you come?" "I'm just afraid that seeing such an unprecedented scene at such a young age, your young heart will be greatly impacted. Moreover, it will also damage my reputation and image. Moreover, the key problem was," he sighed and pointed to the back, "Miss Zhao, you can come, but why did you lead them here?" Su Qingwan reacted very quickly and suddenly turned back. She happened to see Zhang Yinluo in the corner, who was shrinking back in panic. Miss Zhang, who had been following the carriage stealthily, had underestimated Sun Lang's perceptive attribute. With just one glance, he had seen through her. Although she felt a little embarrassed, she still walked over with Sima Ping with a hollow smile. After Sun Lang saw Sima Ping, He frowned and looked at Zhang Yinluo. Why did you bring her here? Zhang Yinluo helplessly spread out his hands. She was worried and said she wanted to find Miss Zhao to discuss it. I brought her to Marquis Jinggan Fu and happened to see Miss Zhao coming this way, so... Miss Zhao's expression changed slightly. She glanced at Sun Lang and whispered, Sun Lang, are you angry? The ranger was stunned for a moment, then shook his head and smiled. Why would I be angry with you over such a trivial matter? Zhao Fei Huang heaved a huge sigh of relief and patted her chest. Even the corner of her eyes had a trace of sparkling and translucent tears. You scared me to death. I thought. She seemed to be really worried that Sun Lang would be angry because of this. After receiving the ranger's reply, she immediately turned the muzzle and aimed at Zhang Yinluo to fire. Some uninvited fellows are really a hindrance. This is clearly a little secret between Sun Lang and me, but they are so thick-skinned to butt in really. Zhang Yinluo glanced at Zhao Fei Huang. The conflict between these two young girls was already getting more and more intense. Moreover, earlier today, eldest Miss Zhang even found out from Sima Ping that Zhao Fei Huang was slandering her behind her back. The new and old grudges added together quickly filled her anger bar, causing her head to heat up. She sneered coldly and raised her hand to prepare to open fire. Thus, Zhang Yinluo's face revealed an elegant smile. He walked closer with a smile and reached out his hand to straighten Sun Lang's collar. Then, he lightly patted the ranger's chest and said with a slightly reproachful and lovable tone, Miss Zhao is in charge of the Marquis Fu and is so busy every day. How can you still go and disturb her? If there's anything, it's not like there's no one at home. You could just send a letter back and shout. Why bother an outsider? Miss Zhao's face darkened and she almost choked. She didn't expect that this cowed demon had become so sharp-tongued after pestering Sun Lang for a few days. However, Zhao Fei Huang wasn't someone easy to deal with. In a flash, he found Zhang Yinluo's Achilles heel and quickly retorted, Oh, outsider? At home? I wonder when Miss Zhang married Sun Lang? Where are the matchmaker's words? Who was the matchmaker? When did you get married? Did it hurt on the wedding night? How many children do you want to have? She blinked and turned to look at Sun Lang. She asked in a very cute and innocent tone, Sun Lang, is it big? Is it soft? Is it tight? Does it feel good? It had to be said that Miss Zhao was truly a heroine among women. She was decisive and ruthless in her attacks. For the current Zhang Yinluo, using that kind of tone to say those ambiguous words was already the limit of her shame. In terms of face, how could she be a match for Miss Zhao, who threw away her moral integrity at the sight of her lover? Sure enough, as soon as he heard Zhao Fei Huang's vulgar words, Zhang Yinluo exploded in an instant. You? What are you talking about? Who has done that kind of thing with him? Didn't you? Miss Zhao covered her mouth in surprise. You're too much. You actually used your vulgar chest to seduce Sun Lang, but refused to give him meat. You just hooked him like this. Do you want to get something from Sun Lang? After you succeed, you will abandon him cruelly and heartlessly. You are such a vicious woman. The two began to quarrel again. Su Qingwan sighed helplessly, looked up at the sky, and pretended not to hear anything. And Sun Lang, there are actually two beautiful girls quarreling over me. There are actually two beautiful girls quarreling over me. Sima Ping rolled her eyes and reached out to push this guy who had fallen into a strange world. Hey, come back to your senses. Sun Lang reacted very quickly and dodged. Have some self-respect, girl. Although you don't have breasts, you can't treat yourself as a boy. Don't touch men casually. Do you understand? Go to hell. Sima Ping rolled her eyes at him. Hey, what do you want to do? And in that carriage, what's in it? This. Sun Lang didn't even blink his eyes. A water hose, that's all. Miss Zhao and I are going to study a new type of fertilization and irrigation equipment for agriculture. We will contribute our own strength to the development of agriculture and the good life of the people of the empire. Bah, I can't believe a word of your words. Sima Ping made a face. However, it's good that Sister Zhao and you are here now. Then I'll say it directly. Today's young master, I don't know if he is my master's enemy. Can you think of a way to get something out of him? Sun Lang's expression changed slightly and glanced at Zhang Yinluo. I decided to go alone at that time to avoid this girl and interrogate some things in advance. I didn't expect you to ruin my plan and spoil my plans. Why go back? I must spank you 50 times. He rolled his eyes. Okay. I'll try and see if I can catch them all in one net. After saying that, he looked at the carriage with slight pity. Today Yinluo was also here, so this thing couldn't be used. Forget it. I'll restrain myself. Moreover, I always feel like I've lost when I use this thing. Chapter 190. Hu Shouxin was a ruffian. When a ruffian was threatened by a ruffian, even more ruffian than him, to do something, his methods were bound to be filled with anger and violence. Therefore, Sun Lang had him find a group of ruffians and idlers to take orders. This ranger of Mingzhou City raised his fist and found the biggest ruffian group in the area. After beating them up, he gave them money and revealed his identity. He used both kindness and power to get them to come and take orders. The benefits were great. However, all this had nothing to do with Sun Lang. When Hu Shouxin brought people over, he knew that everything was ready. Then the east wind came. He saw young master Wu Hen's tall and thin follower sneaking into the inn. Here comes the idea. Although Hu Shouxin was very unwilling, his body was very honest. As a sniper, he had already entered the zone. Stick-Hu stared at the target and smiled. Did you see it? Breathing, rhythm, footwork, aura, and his hands. This is clearly a brilliant swordsman. This kind of person is actually willing to be a servant? I'm starting to get interested. He glanced at Sun Lang, who had a serious expression and was deep in thought. What are you thinking? Sun Lang said with a serious face. I'm thinking if we call Chow Pitao, then Saber, Archer, and Lancer, the three knights will all be together. I don't know what you're talking about. Hu Shouxin rolled his eyes. You see, they're coming out. Do you want to follow? The ranger shook his head and said, No, leisure and health needs to be complete. Acting also needs to be complete. Yes, that's what I mean. Looking at the setting, we don't know that tall and thin swordsman, so we don't know that he is the target. Therefore, we have to go to the inn and ask. Otherwise, we will alert the people who are secretly watching us. Hu Shouxin raised his head and looked in a certain direction. Are you talking about the bald guy hiding on the roof? He looks like a martial artist. He is quite old, and his internal martial arts are not bad. Hey, what is the background of this group of people? How could there be such a person? Sun Lang narrowed his eyes and looked at him. Most likely, his hair looks like it was shaved recently. Why did he suddenly want to change his hairstyle? Stick-Hu said impatiently, It's none of your business. I think you're really bored out of your mind. You're actually still in the mood to play this kind of trick. Is it fun to pretend to be a pig to eat a tiger? The ranger said proudly, Nonsense. What's the difference between a life without acting cool and a salted fish? He waved his hand and said, All right, just act according to my gestures later. Be more professional. I'll go to the inn first. He flashed out of his hiding place and jogged into the inn like a cheerful deer. He let out a barbell-like laugh. Boss. The innkeeper of the inn was in a dilemma. After seeing Sun Lang, his face paled a little. At this moment, he must be in a dilemma. Out of a kind person's nature, he didn't want to see Sun Lang fall into a dangerous situation. However, his rationality told him to stay away from this kind of Jianghu vendetta and grudges. His eyes changed several times, and he stammered. Guest, don't you want to think about it? You may be in danger. Sun Lang was stunned for a moment. Then he smiled and patted the innkeeper's shoulder. He said with a smile, Thank you for telling me this. I know all about it. These understated words were like thunder to the shopkeeper. His face suddenly became deathly pale, his legs went soft, and he almost fell to the ground. Sun Lang smiled and supported him. Don't be afraid, brother. Don't be afraid. It's nothing. Don't worry. Although this innkeeper with amazing acting skills had tried to pretend as if nothing had happened, how could the panic in his eyes and the subtle changes in his expression escape Sun Lang's eyes? Moreover, When that young Master Wuhan had come down the stairs and talked cheerfully and wittily, Sun Lang had been sitting cross-legged on the roof, quietly listening to him act pretentious. The ranger, who had already seen through everything, smiled and said, "Well, you've already exceeded your expectations. I originally wanted to take back the ingot of gold, but because of what you said, I'll give it to you. Mortals don't need courage and willpower that surpasses everything. As long as you occasionally show some kindness, it's enough." The innkeeper watched him turn around and leave with a smile. He didn't know where he got the courage to call out, "You're not angry with me?" Sun Lang's footsteps paused. He didn't turn around. He only tilted his head and smiled gently. "I never expected you to keep your promise. How could I be surprised by your betrayal? After all, in this big world, there are only a few people who treat me sincerely. As for the rest, I won't believe any of them. Since I don't believe them, how can I betray you?" He stepped out of the inn with a smile and made a gesture. Hu Shoshin understood and waved his hand. A group of hooligans on standby immediately followed him aggressively. Zhao Feihuang, who was on standby at another street corner, had his eyes lit up. He waved his small fist and said, "Sister Su, let's hurry up and catch up." Zhang Yinluo had a subtle expression on his face, as if he realized that something dangerous was about to happen. "I say, what are you doing with the water hose? Do you want to set a fire?" Su Qingwan silently turned her head to one side. After tonight, for those poor people, it must be a very happy thing to be burned by fire, compared with the tragedy they were about to encounter. Zhao Feihuang showed a pure and flawless smile. Yes, yes. Sun Lang said that he was going to use fire to attack first. He would sprinkle some drugs in the fire. The fire would be strengthened by the wind and make them lose their fighting ability. Then he would use the water hose to put out the fire so that they wouldn't be burned alive. By the way, I heard that Sister Zhang used to be a constable of the six-fan school. You must have some experience in putting out fire and controlling the water hose. My servants are all clumsy. Why don't you control the water hose to put out the fire? Don't smoke those people to death just because my servants are clumsy. Zhang Yinluo blinked. Her stupid intuition made her realize that something was wrong. Are you plotting something? Zhao Feihuang pretended to be sad and said, Sister Zhang, am I so unbearable in your heart? Zhang Yinluo snorted. Well, I guess you can't play any tricks. Just as they reached a consensus in the carriage, Hu Shoshin's and Zhao Feihuang's sides had all moved out. The sentries arranged by young Master Wuhan also saw all this. The old boxer's face was gloomy. His gray hair had all been shaved off for some special reason, leaving a big shiny head. He was staring at the movement below and snorted. A motley crew. Because of what he had experienced today, he was a little angry at this time. The old boxer glanced at Hu Shoshin, who was the most conspicuous in the crowd. Look at his body. Is he the archer that the little rascal said became a paladin? His vigilance is too poor. Even if he can't find me, you should at least feel it. Humph, a motley crew. He looked to the other side. Two carriages began to move abruptly, which was very suspicious. What's inside? Suddenly, a breeze blew by and lifted the side curtain of the carriage. The old boxer caught a glimpse of the devastatingly beautiful face of the girl inside. It was the shame that he had just received today. It was a face that he would never forget in his life. It's that little bitch who threw shit. Chapter 191. Dedicated his life to martial arts. Devoted his life to martial arts. Relying on it to serve the country, relying on it to bring honor to his family, relying on it to build his career. From his youth, to his middle age, to his old age, every day, every year. He used to think that dying on the battlefield was the most glorious death. He used to think that he would gamble everything to fight and calmly face any outcome. He thought that all victories were worth celebrating and all defeats were worth savoring. Until that afternoon, he would never, ever forget that day. He had suffered a humiliating defeat. He was thoroughly defeated in an incomparably embarrassing manner, defeated in a muddle-headed manner. Moreover, He endured the pain of shaving his white hair. He became bald, but he didn't become stronger. This was simply the saddest thing in the world. And the source of all this was that little girl, who looked righteous but didn't do anything, who threw a can of shit that fell from the sky. When enemies met, their eyes would turn red. The enmity of having shit thrown at them was absolutely irreconcilable. The old boxer gritted his teeth. She also came? Very good, I knew it. This matter is also related to her. Humph, 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 humph. This old man today. Old Chi, a person beside him, asked cautiously, Young Master Wuhan, we're still waiting for you to send back the news. This time, the team of 6 people was headed by young Master Wuhan, assisted by the old boxer, and the other 4 were all assistants and subordinates. Their team had a strict hierarchy and a clear division of labor. The subordinates only needed to obey their superiors, listen to their orders, and work hard to move forward. Apart from that, they weren't allowed to ask any questions. Therefore, although this guy was curious as to why the old boxer had shaved his white hair, changed into a new set of clothes, and sprayed a lot of spices on his body, he still suppressed his curiosity. Because looking at the grief and indignation on old Chi's face, he knew that he must have suffered some kind of unbearable burden. But even so, he still had to remind old Chi not to lose his mind because of personal grievances and cause young Master Wuhan's plan to collapse. Don't worry. The old boxer squeezed out a few words from between his teeth. This old man knows what's important and won't ruin young Master Wuhan's plans. He stared fixedly at the carriage, his eyes flashing with hatred. Go back and report to young Master that the enemy is divided into 2 groups, one in the open and one in the dark. On the surface, they're just a bunch of scoundrels. Their leader is also not worth mentioning. They're just a bunch of mobs. As long as we capture the enemy leader and show them our strength, they will scatter. As for the hidden force, the old boxer grinned grimly. I'll track them down and deal with them myself, especially that little b asterisk tchu through sh asterisk t. I'll give her a taste of her own medicine. I'll pour a bucket of sh asterisk t on her. Let her have a taste of this. As he said this, the old resentment in his heart was aroused again. The old boxer suddenly clenched his right hand, and a tile next to his hand was crushed into flour. Sunran old Chi said, at such a young age, she actually dared to throw sh asterisk t. She doesn't even know how to use such a despicable method. This old man will drown all these perverts who play with sh asterisk t and urine in the latrine. Sun Lang suddenly raised his head and made a sound of surprise. Hu Shouxin, who was beside him, had his head wrapped in a scarf and his face covered with a sweat towel, looking mysterious and sneaky. He asked in a low voice, "What's wrong with you?" Sun Lang touched his head and said, "I don't know. I have a very inexplicable feeling, as if someone was courting death and caused some kind of information interference." Hu Shouxin rolled his eyes and said, "What nonsense are you talking about in broad daylight? What information interference? Oh, I remember that you told a story like this before. Something about Liang Chuanri, the reincarnation of Buddha, and Chang Yoshi, the girl with a mechanism created by the 10,000 scrolls of the way." The ranger made a sound of surprise and said, "I told this story before. You even forgot about it yourself." Hu Shouxin pursed his lips and said, "At that time, everyone liked to listen to your stories. Although they all knew that you were talking nonsense with a straight face, it still sounded very interesting. Let's not talk about this anymore. It seems that the other party has already dug a hole for you to jump into. How are you going to fight then?" Sun Lang revealed a wise smile and said, "Humph, what kind of ability is it to use force to subdue people? You see, I only need a lightly point, and this group of thieves will be terrified. My dear friend, you don't have to believe me. It's time for you to know my other name. That's right, I'm the brother of the legendary four-eyebrowed Lu Xiaofeng, Lu Dafeng." He stretched out 2 fingers and smiled proudly. "It doesn't matter if the opponent is a man or a woman. I only need to lightly poke or flick. If it's a woman, I'll use my pee-leaking finger. If it's a man, I'll use my trashy magic. I'll kill both men and women, and I'll always succeed. Are you afraid?" Hu Hu Shoshin looked at him as if he was looking at social trash. I'm not afraid. Sun Lang didn't get angry. He smiled proudly and said, don't panic. After this battle, you'll be afraid. Hu Shoshin saw his mysterious face and rolled his eyes. He said resentfully, I'd like to see what kind of tricks you can play. The other party is speeding up. Follow closely. Sun Lang looked up and saw that the Machateman's footsteps were much faster. However, for Sun Lang and Hu Shoshin, it was very difficult to lose this machete man with good martial arts. Moreover, although the other party was speeding up, he was still deliberately going easy on them. It was probably that young Master Wu Hen's idea to make everyone feel nervous so that they would drop their vigilance and enter the encirclement they had set up in advance. It was really a powerful layout. Sun Lang pretended to be anxious and quickened his footsteps to continue following closely. At the same time, he chatted with Hu Shoshin. This group of ruffians and scoundrels, in addition to a little hoodlum who harbored evil intentions, and a military ruffian who had retired from the army to become a ranger and whose martial arts were mediocre, were walking step by step into young Master Wu Hen's flawless encirclement. Several miles away, the elegant and noble young master was listening to the information sent back by his subordinates. Then, he said with a smile, That's good. This will give Elder Qi a chance to take revenge. And now it seems that the female doctor is in that carriage. He stood up and stroked the long sword at his waist. He smiled gracefully and said, Come, welcome the guest. On the other side, the old boxer was like a patient leopard. He lowered his body and quietly moved forward between the buildings. He locked onto the two carriages and waited for young Master Wu Hen's signal. So far, all of Sun Lang's arrangements were under the supervision and control of young Master Wu Hen's side. This wave looked really F***King stable. Chapter 192. After a period of tailing, the swordsman finally arrived at his destination and entered a dilapidated courtyard. Sun Lang had already completely immersed himself in his role. He waved his hand and said, Little ones, unsheathe your swords and load your guns. Let's fight the local tyrants and divide the land. Each of you will have a female student. Right at this moment, a light laugh entered everyone's ears. Young Master Wu Hen was like an immortal that had descended from the 9 heavens as he floated on the roof. His gaze was cold and arrogant as he lowered his head to look at this group of aggressive ruffians with an indifferent and reserved expression. Everyone, Wu Hen has been waiting for a long time. The ruffians that Hu Shoshin had found were only local ruffians. Their abilities were limited, but their eyesight was sharp. Seeing young Master Wu Hen's snow-white clothes, they felt ashamed of their inferiority. Moreover, their experience on the streets had given them the ability to recognize people. This young master didn't seem to be easy to provoke. However, there seemed to be no shortage of people in this world who didn't know the difference between life and death. Sun Lang picked his nose and spat on the ground. He rolled his eyes at young Master Wu Hen and said casually, You sissy, are you the gigolo who wants to bully my little sister? You look like a dog with a face of kidney deficiency. Aren't you afraid of getting dirty by wearing such white clothes? Isn't it hard to wash them? Isn't it hard to dry them? You are so coquettish and pretentious during the day. Do you secretly squat by the river to wash clothes at night? When the ruffians heard his words, they glanced at young Master Wu Hen, who was as graceful as an immortal. The few guys with amazing imaginations had already begun to imagine this noble young master secretly holding a basin of clothes and squatting by the river in the middle of the night, fiercely hammering the clothes. The scene was down to earth with a trace of comical feeling. It was unknown who was the first to burst into laughter. Young Master Wu Hen's expression changed slightly. He coldly said, Vulgar, you were just trying to win the battle of words. You really don't know life from death. As soon as he finished speaking, the wind whistled. 2 people jumped onto the wall from the houses on both sides, and another person turned out from the end of the street. The sound of footsteps could be heard. The thin and tall saber man had already put down his luggage and walked out of the courtyard with a cold face, holding a long and narrow saber. He surrounded Sun Lang and the others from all directions. Young Master Wuhan's white clothes fluttered in the wind, as if victory was already in his grasp. He pressed down on the hilt of his sword, and his clear and elegant tone carried an oppressive pressure. You've already become turtles in a jar. If you're smart enough to surrender without a fight, you'll suffer less. Especially you, little scoundrel. I want to ask you a few questions. The hooligans looked around. These people were used to fighting on the streets, so they had their own way of observing people's expressions. Looking at the demeanor and physique of the four people, they knew that these people were all tough characters. They couldn't help but complain in their hearts, and all of their expressions changed. However, at this time of low morale, Sun Lang stood up again. He looked up to the sky and laughed maniacally. Are you stupid? Are you stupid? You only have 5 people, but we have 20. 4 against 1. How can we lose? Under everyone's complicated gazes, he took 2 steps forward. Looking at young Master Wuhan, he laughed like a villain who had achieved success. Pretty boy, let me tell you, in this Mingzhou city, I am the law. If you're smart, you'll quickly take out a few thousand or a few hundred taels of gold to show your filial piety to your grandfather and save yourself from suffering. Otherwise, humph, he shouted, I'll find a few dozen people and let a sissy like you taste the taste of a merchant girl who doesn't know what it's like to hate her country. A cold light flashed in young Master Wuhan's eyes. Impudent. Slap him. On the left, a warrior with superb lightness kung fu flew out in response. Like an eagle soaring into the sky. With the sound of the wind, he grabbed at Sun Lang. Little brat, come here. In the blink of an eye, only Hu Shoshin saw Sun Lang's movements clearly. He saw the ranger's fingers move into his sleeves, and when he stretched them out again, there was a small drop of verdant liquid on his middle finger. Then he put his middle finger and thumb together, and with a bayou sound, he flicked the mysterious liquid out. Judging from the strength and the trajectory of the bullet, it probably hit the turtle's head. As a result, the expression of that man, who was as swift and fierce as a heavenly eagle, immediately changed. At a speed visible to the naked eye, his evil grin instantly turned into horror and deathly pale. It was as if his asshole had been stuffed with chili peppers. It was obviously very satisfying, but he didn't dare to move at all. His eagle-like handsome posture also became stiff. It was as if a magical eagle had turned into a free-range chicken. Then, Sun Lang naturally didn't get hit by that man's eagle claw. The ranger just dodged to the side, and then took out a big brick from who knows where and smashed it on the head. Roll, dear cow. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. Young Master Wuhan's group was only surprised for a moment. Their companion had already been knocked down by Sun Lang's brick, and then he started to finish him off. The remaining few people were shocked. After all, they were colleagues. Seeing Sun Lang raise his foot and stomp down with increasing ferocity, they couldn't hold back and rushed over. Stop! Then bayou. The barbaric charge of those experts also froze midway. Their mouths were wide open, and they felt as if they had been sucked into the ocean of prostate breaks. It was so satisfying that they didn't dare to imagine it. The sun was setting in the west, and the wind was whimpering. On the quiet and cold street, several powerful experts kept sucking in cold air, their eyes glaring angrily. Their legs instantly bent inward. Kushoshin glanced at Sun Lang, as if he was looking at trash. What's that? The ranger gave a thumbs up. Essential balm. It clears away heat, dispels wind, and relieves itching. It's suitable for mosquito bites, headaches, and dizziness caused by colds and colds. It's very effective. Brother, do you want to try some? Old Hu shook his head like a rattle drum. Sun Lang's expression changed. Then what the F***ck are you waiting for? Why aren't you acting as a shill for me? The example of the victim was too obvious and tragic. Old Hu couldn't help but be terrified. Hushoshin blinked and rushed forward to meet the swordsman. He knocked him to the ground with a punch, and then he raised his arm and shouted, so it's just this kind of trash. Brothers, beat him up. Sun Lang stomped a few more times, and then he raised his arm and shouted wildly, as if he wanted to see the world in chaos. Everyone, let's go together and beat the dog that's down. Beat his grandma. When dealing with this kind of person, there's no need to talk about righteousness in the martial world. Let's go. Facts had proven that since ancient times, it was best to fight a favorable battle. Even these local hoodlums had become valiant when they discovered that these four seemingly cool guys had somehow lost their fighting strength. Although they didn't understand what had happened, they took advantage of the situation to beat them up. Everything had happened too quickly. In the blink of an eye, the great situation had been ruined. Moreover, the tables had been turned inexplicably. The feeling in young Master Wu-Hin's heart couldn't be described with words. He was fully aware of the abilities of his colleagues. They were definitely not so weak. Then, the reason why they had become so strange, his gaze fell on Sun Lang's body. The ranger had given the last strike position to the other hoodlums. As if he had felt young Master Wu-Hin's gaze, he turned his head and revealed a mouthful of shining white teeth, smiling in an incomparably simple and honest manner. Young Master Wu-Hin suddenly felt a chill in his crotch, as if he had a premonition that something was about to happen. The other party was clearly a hoodlum with mediocre martial arts, but for some reason, he gave him a very dangerous and bad feeling. It made him feel a trace of panic and helplessness. Hey, what's going on? Also, what about Elder Qi? What about Elder Qi? Chapter 193. Two flowers bloomed, one on each side. When Sun Lang and his friends fell into the despicable trap set by young Master Wu-Hin and were struggling to resist, the old boxer, surnamed Qi, was ready to bully the weak again and chase after a few weak and helpless girls. What a group of cruel people. The carriage drove along another road. After 2 blocks, they were close to their destination. An order came from the carriage, and the carriage stopped. Su Qingwan helped Zhao Feihuang out of the carriage. Miss Zhao looked at the surrounding environment and nodded. Let's wait here. If we get closer, it's easy to be discovered by the other party. After she finished speaking, she turned to look at Zhang Yinluo, who also got out of the carriage. Her face was instantly full of smiles. Sister Yinluo, I'll leave the rest to you. When the time comes, as long as we see the fire there, we will transport the water hose over as fast as possible. When the time comes, please don't hesitate, Sister Yinluo. Spray as much as you want. Zhang Yinluo glanced at Zhao Feihuang with a strange expression. I always feel that you're hiding something from me. However, Miss Zhao decisively acted cute maliciously. She tilted her head, blinked her eyes, and stuck out her tongue. Even Miss Zhang, who was a woman, was moved by her cute appearance. How can I hide something from Sister Zhang? Besides, I'm not asking you to do anything else. It's just manipulating the water hose. What serious consequences can there be? If one only looked at her appearance, she was indeed a rare beauty. He really didn't know why she fell in love with Sun Lang. Her taste was really heavy. With such a thought, Zhang Yinluo frowned, but he had to admit that Miss Zhao's words made sense. It was just a water hose. What other tricks could it have? At most, he would spray some other things, such as tongue oil or something that could ignite a fire, and then... No. Although Sun Lang usually had a strong sense of mischief, he would not be so vicious. At most, he would mix some canned herring in the water and spray it on someone's face. This kind of thing was actually not a big deal. Thinking of this, she turned to look at the other carriage. The water hose was inside. Suddenly, a trace of curiosity arose in the girl's heart. She wanted to see what was inside, but in the next moment, her expression changed and she shouted, "Be careful." The fist wind was like a storm, sweeping away everything in its path. It was unstoppable. First, it was the wheels, then the ruts, and finally the roof of the carriage. The entire carriage immediately collapsed and would flew everywhere. The horse neighed, broke free from the reins, and fled. The coachman was thrown to the ground, and the carriage collapsed. The 4 servants of the Marquis's mansion inside fell dizzy, and a large water hose crashed to the ground. It was none other than the old boxer, surnamed Qi, who had smashed the carriage into a pile of rubble. When the dust settled, his majestic figure was revealed. He stood tall and straight with his bald head pointing to the blue sky, giving people the feeling that his explosive strike rate must be very high. At this moment, The old man's eyes were fierce and overflowing with killing intent. He was staring fixedly at Zhang Yinluo, as if he was looking at a lifelong enemy. He took 2 steps forward, glanced at the water hose on the ground, and sneered. He raised his right foot and stepped on the water hose's water tank, saying coldly, "We meet again." Ignoring Zhang Yinluo and Sima Ping, who did not know, the old boxer's action of stepping on the water tank made the fearless young Miss Zhao tremble. Su Qingwan blocked in front of her family's eldest miss, and that slender and powerful figure also trembled uncontrollably. "Everyone come here. Protect eldest miss." Firstly, the old boxer respected his status, and secondly, he did not recognize that the eldest young miss in front of him was one of the targets of their trip, Marquis Jingan, Fu's eldest young Miss Zhao. So he coldly snorted, "Other than this little slut who throws shit, and that little girl who practices medicine, stay. Everyone else scram. This old man will not lower himself to a woman's level." Zhang Yinluo angrily said, "You're the one who threw shit. You're the little slut. This is a canned herring. This old man doesn't care what you are." Thinking of what happened this afternoon, the anger in the old boxer's heart burned uncontrollably. He opened his mouth and scolded, "Shameless little slut." Young Miss Zhang had been hanging out with Sun Lang for a while, so she was good at talking. At the beginning, she felt a little guilty towards this old gentleman. After all, she shot the stinky white substance all over his face without saying anything, which was really not something to be proud of. However, seeing that the other party was aggressive and not polite at all, she also became angry. "You're the one who is shameless. You're so skilled in martial arts, but you're making things difficult for a little girl who's treating a patient. You're really shameless." The old boxer snorted and heavily stepped on the water tank, directly knocking it over, and a dull boom sounded. Miss Zhao and Steward Su's heart trembled again, and they were so scared that they almost flew away. However, it was reassuring that although it was hit and even overturned, the water tank still maintained its durability and airtight, without any leakage. It was even more protective of Shu Bao than Sophie. After they breathed a sigh of relief, the master and servant thought at the same time. When they went back, they must reward the carpenter who remodeled the water tank with a lot of money. Zhang Yinluo was still ignorant of all this, and could never imagine that the old man had stepped on such a deadly thing. At this time, she was also angry and sarcastically said, "Do you only know how to vent your anger on a water hose? Kick it again, if you have the ability, kick it until it explodes." Hearing this, Zhao Fei Huang and Su Qingwan's expressions both became very strange, and their eyes looking at Zhang Yinluo became uncertain. The old boxer sneered, "Kick it until it explodes? Why would I kick it? I'm here to get even with you today. Wait." He narrowed his eyes, looked at the water hose on the ground, thought for a moment, and then showed a witty smile. "Humph, I was almost fooled by you. You secretly transported the water hose here, and you must have a purpose. This water hose must play a vital role in your plan, and it is a very important prop. How can you bear to let me kick it until it explodes?" The old boxer showed only one expression, and he smiled proudly. "Humph, using this method to divert my attention from the water hose? It's no use, no use, no use. You let me taste the unforgettable shame, so I will pay you back. Although I don't know what you're going to do with it. No matter what you're going to do with it, no matter what tricks you have, it's all useless. As long as it is destroyed, you can't do anything." He strode forward, and in the horrified eyes of Zhao Fei Huang and Su Qingwan, he raised his right foot high and stomped hard. Break! With a muffled bang, a large part of the shell of the water tank collapsed, but it didn't break. Because before this, Su Qingwan ordered the craftsman to modify the water tank, which had iron sheets and fillers, so it was naturally much stronger than the wooden box. It was said that when people were extremely angry, they liked to hit something with the hardest head to vent their anger and show their strength. For example, Gong, who was defeated by Zhuron. For example, Zidane, who heard that Nagato Yuki copied Ayanami Rei's character. For example, the old boxer who just failed to show off in front of everyone. When he failed to hit the water hose, his old face turned red, and then he became angry out of shame. He roared, exerted his strength with both hands, and straightened the heavy water tank. Then he gathered 120% of his strength, and with his temples bulging high, he slammed the water tank. Iron Head Skill. Chapter 194. At the age of 16, Miss Zhao had gradually taken control of the large Lord Protector's manor with her extraordinary skills and willpower. She was indeed a decisive heroine. Therefore, when the old boxer showed off his strength in front of these weak girls to deter them, she quickly gave orders with a set of sign language unique to the Lord Protector's manor. The servants of the Lord Protector's manor present were all well-trained and carefully selected martial artists. Although they were not as good at fighting as the old boxer, they were more obedient. Therefore, when the old boxer roared and slammed his iron head into the water tank, Miss Zhao shouted, "Run!" As soon as her voice fell, the 4 flying gunners and the 2 coachmen immediately fled in all directions. At the same time, Su Qingwan immediately grabbed Zhao Feihuang's slender waist, rushed into the sky, and ran desperately in one direction. At the same time, she shouted, "Miss Zhang!" Zhang Yinluo also noticed Su Qingwan's sign language before, which probably meant that she should take Sima Ping and run away quickly. However, Miss Zhang didn't know what was going on. Although she also grabbed Sima Ping at the first time, she still turned her head out of curiosity. Then, she saw a horrible scene that she would never forget in her life. That impactful scene, that dramatic turn of events, that fauvism style that transcended reality, and that terrifying aura that instantly dissipated. Her brain hadn't figured out what was going on, but her body instantly made the best reaction, which was run. Zhang Yinluo pulled Sima Ping and used the Taoist sense of the imperial army of the Jinghong sword. Her body was as graceful as a swan, and she rushed after Butler Su like a flickering light. Her eyes were full of shock and anger, and she shouted, You poured real shit into it. You are too obscene." As soon as her voice fell, an earth-shattering roar sounded behind her. It was the old boxer's roar. "Oh, you little bitch, you set me up again." "I didn't. It was snowing in June." Zhang Yinluo was wronged, but at this moment, the victim had lost her mind. He wouldn't listen to her explanation. A thunderous roar came from behind them. The girls turned around and were shocked to see a humanoid creature covered in black mud of fascination let out an earth-shattering roar. With a boundless aura, it madly charged towards them. "Oh, this old man is going to kill you." Ah! In that instant, everyone present had the same thought. This was probably what it meant when they said that 10,000 men wouldn't be able to match up to him. Then, the 4 girls let out deafening screams at the same time. Su Qingwan and Zhang Yinluo instantly raised their internal force to the 10th level. They wished that they had 2 more legs and ran forward desperately. Zhang Yinluo's voice sounded like he was about to cry. "It's really not me." "Hey, look at what you've done. What should we do?" Miss Zhao hesitated for a moment, but Su Qingwan immediately made a choice. Butler Su gnashed his teeth and said, "Go find Sun Lang. This is the mess he caused." Zhang Yinluo was stunned, and then he roared, I knew it was him. This shameless guy." Ah! On Sun Lang's side, he was trapped by the trap set by the forces of light with a group of local ruffians. Just as he was struggling and fighting vigorously, suddenly, there was a faint scream in the distance. The ranger touched his head and wondered, "What's going on?" "It sounds like a witch is frightened." He shrugged his shoulders and decided to ignore him. Then, he raised a finger at young Master Wuhan, who wasn't far away. "Young Master, this is a trashy divine ability passed down from my ancestors. I only need to lightly flick it, and you'll move without wind. Do you see your companion? They must be very happy now, so don't be afraid. Just a little. It must be said that Sun Lang was absolutely the destroyer of all pretentiousness and atmosphere, because at this time, young Master Wuhan, who was dressed in white and floating like an immortal, no longer had the ethereal aura and elegant temperament from before. It would be better to say that no matter who it was, no matter how gorgeous their clothes were or how high their pretentious skills were, When he held a broken door in front of them, all their temperament and pretentiousness would become a joke. However, young Master Wuhan didn't have the time to care about these things at this moment. He held a door plank in one hand and pressed the hilt of the sword at his waist with the other hand, not daring to step forward. Since he was so wary of shooting at the rat for fear of breaking the vases, he should be afraid of Sun Lang's trash divine ability. Even if his martial arts were 10 times stronger, he would still have some doubts in his heart after seeing the miserable state of his companions. Before he could figure out what method Sun Lang had used, he absolutely wouldn't step forward. Therefore, he tried to goad him. It seems that Wu Hin has underestimated you. You shouldn't be weak. So why do you use such a despicable method? If you still have a bit of a martial artist dignity, let's fight one-on-one. Whether it's fists, palms, or swords, I will accompany you. Unfortunately, Sun Lang didn't bite at all. He rolled his eyes and said, "Who told you that I am a martial artist?" Young Master Wu Hin said angrily, "Not a martial artist? Then what are you?" The ranger smiled proudly. "An armed civilian who knows his place." Knows his place? Bah! Young Master Wu Hin spat in his heart, but it was obvious that he was also stalling for time. This noble young master's calculations were very shrewd. The ambush battle, which was originally a 90% sure victory, had been defeated so muddle-headedly. However, there was still a chance to turn the tables, and that was Elder Chi. The old boxer's skill was strong, and his experience was deep. He was even above young Master Wu Hin's. Naturally, it would be easy for him to capture those women. At that time, with the hostages in hand, they could instantly reverse the situation. Moreover, with the two of them working together, they didn't need to fear Sun Lang using any despicable methods. Whether it was Elder Chi's fist aura or his own swift sword, they could instantly subdue the other party the moment they attacked. But at this time, figures flashed in the distance. A fragrant wind drifted in the distance, and the figures were picturesque. Several young girls quickly flew over and landed on the ground. Their expressions were panicked, as if someone was chasing after them. The eyes of all the men present brightened. These 4 young women were either mature or immature, naive or steady, tall or short, flat or huge. Even though all of them were outstanding beauties, yet they were all extraordinary in their own way. It was extremely difficult to meet a single heavenly immortal like this at ordinary times, let alone 4 of them appearing at once. The local ruffians present all stared with their eyes wide open, but before they could make any comments or say any obscene words, a terrifying aura condensed into a solid substance came from the distance. That aura was so strong that even the ruffians with shallow martial arts could easily perceive one thing. A terrifying guy would arrive at the battlefield in 30 seconds. They all looked into the distance at the same time. A black figure roared and rushed over. Oh, you little bitch, don't run. Young Master Wu Hin immediately recognized who the newcomer was. His eyes couldn't help but flash with a trace of shock and admiration. As expected of Elder Chi, someone who retired from the battlefield and rolled in a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood, he was willing to make such a sacrifice in order to complete the mission. If it were me, I definitely wouldn't be able to do it. However, it's really a good idea. In this case, even I wouldn't dare to make a move against him, let alone these people. He sneered twice. Do you see that? You don't want to be punched and kicked by him, do you? Hurry up and surrender. Sun Lang shrugged. However, in the current situation, there's no point in surrendering. This situation seems quite serious. How should I break out of it? Chapter 195. First of all, Sun Lang glared at the 4 frightened girls. Who did it? Zhao Fei Huang, Su Qingwan, and Sima Ping all glanced at Zhang Yinluo. It's unexpected, but reasonable. The ranger sighed. From the first day I saw you, I knew that you would do such a thing sooner or later. Hey, Zhang Yinluo roared. What does it have to do with me? Didn't you ask Zhao Fei Huang to prepare that thing? Sun Lang rolled his eyes and said, the blacksmith left the machete in the blacksmith shop, and you took it out to kill someone. Whose fault is it? You. Zhang Yinluo flew into a rage. Blacksmithing is a proper business. What do you want to do by putting feces in the water hose? You're up to no good. Bah, if a person has a dark mind, he won't see anything good. The ranger squinted and said, we put a bucket of farm manure in order to study the automated agriculture of remote fertilization. We want to benefit the farmers, increase agricultural output, and develop agricultural technology. This is a magnificent feat, but before we can start the experiment, you used it as a crazy weapon and did such an outrageous thing to an old man. I'll talk. Shoshin shouted from the side. Can you two pay attention to the surroundings? If you want to quarrel, go home first. Hearing this, Zhang Yinluo and Sun Lang raised their heads at the same time. That terrifying aura had already come from afar, accompanied by the angry roar of a certain old man. Oh, you little bitch, don't think of leaving. Sun Lang blinked and exclaimed, this guy's like a berserker summoned by Tong Yinyao when he was taking a dump. So, after all, gold glitter has a pattern. If he was swallowed by this black mud, almost everyone who knew Sun Lang, including Miss Zhao, shouted at him, hurry up and think of a way. Okay. Sun Lang was shocked. He raised both his hands and said in a light tone, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but this epic-level mutated monsters aggro is all being pulled by Yinluo. Although they did not quite understand Sun Lang's strange terminology, it did not prevent them from using their ugly human nature to detect the meaning behind Sun Lang's words. For a moment, from Hu Shoshin to Zhao Fei Huang and his servant to Sima Ping, all of them suddenly scattered and dodged in all directions, trying their best to distance themselves from Zhang Yinluo. Judging from their posture, they could not wait to break through the atmosphere and warp to another star system. For a moment, the selfishness of human nature, the hypocrisy of the situation, and the degeneration of the world in this dangerous environment were vividly portrayed by a group of shameful humans. However, there were still true feelings in the world. Although the whole world had betrayed Zhang Yinluo, Sun Lang still stood beside Zhang Yinluo with a smile on his face. He turned his head and gave the girl a calm and gentle smile. His eyes seemed to be filled with sunshine. The ranger said softly, Yinluo, if you are willing to be my beep, I will help you get out of this predicament. Do you want to roar or not? Zhang Yinluo's eyes changed, and his expression flickered. There was anger, disappointment, regret, and fear on his face. A terrible enemy was about to arrive. Should she agree to this hateful bastard's robbery, or rather die than submit and face the terrible encounter that was about to come? There was not much time for her to think. The girl had already made a decision in an instant. She looked at Sun Lang and gave him a gentle smile. Then, she jumped over and tightly hugged Sun Lang's back. The roar of the heroine eldest, Miss Zhang, resounded through the sky. Roar your deadhead. If you don't help me, then let's die together. Sun Lang's face suddenly showed a refreshed expression of being shocked by the great waves. While he was silently making a fortune, he said in a disappointed tone, Yinluo, you have learned bad things. The previous you would never have thought of this method. Who do you think I learned this from? Zhang Yinluo roared. Quickly think of a way. He is about to attack us. What should we do? Interesting. Really interesting. Young Master Wu Hen laughed, as if he had seen a wonderful comical play. The two of you have such a good relationship. You can struggle as much as you want. Wu Hen will not accompany you. His gaze immediately fell on Sima Ping. The plan was still going smoothly. Although Elder Chi's appearance was very shocking, he had still helped him break this deadlock. Therefore, while they were exhausted from running for their lives, he could capture this little girl and ask her some things, such as he was thinking and preparing to make a move. But at this moment, a shout exploded in his ears. Trash divine ability. Hearing this terrible word, young Master Wu Hen subconsciously put up the door shield in his hand. However, in that moment of absent-mindedness, Zhang Yinluo waved his startling sword. His figure was nimble, and he appeared behind young Master Wu Hen with Sun Lang in his arms. In front of them, the old boxer rushed over with the filth of this world. When he saw young Master Wu Hen holding the door in front of that little b***th, He immediately roared, "Oh, little Wu Hen, do you also want to stop this old man?" Some terrifying things could only be fully understood when facing them head-on. Just like now, an elite martial artist with filth all over his body, exuding a terrifying aura, was simply unstoppable. Young Master Wu Hen's heart skipped a beat. He usually boasted of his outstanding swordsmanship and was not afraid of this old man who was good at fist and palm techniques. But this young master had to admit that the current Yu was stronger. He felt a chill in his heart. He raised the door and immediately dodged to the side. However, the wind whistled behind him, and someone followed him like a shadow. No matter how he dodged or jumped, the adulterous couple behind him would always deftly change positions with him. They always stood behind him, maintaining a distance of 3 feet from him. Young Master Wu Hen was surprised, but he couldn't help but admire them inwardly. This woman's lightness technique is really amazing. She's carrying a kid with mediocre martial arts, but she can actually keep up with my technique. Although she has the help of the Imperial Army's Taoist rhyme from the startling sword, she's still too powerful. But before he had time to think about it, the old boxer, whose reason had almost been devoured by anger, roared, "If you don't get out of the way, this old man will beat you up as well." Young Master Wu Hen had unspeakable bitterness. He wanted to turn around right now, pull out his sword, and chop this adulterous couple to death. But out of a person's most basic instinct to seek benefits and avoid harm, he was unwilling to show his back to the old boxer, let alone stand on the same side as him and fight side by side with him. Right now, he only wanted to run far away and do what he had to do. He wanted that old man, surnamed Chi, to settle accounts with this adulterous couple. At this time, the old boxer's patience had reached its limit. He couldn't bear it any longer and rushed over with large strides. Young Master Wu Hen was a decisive person. When he saw the situation like this, he made up his mind. "I'll go all out. Even if I get stained a little, it can't be helped. I'll first fight side by side with old Chi and chop this adulterous couple to death." He abruptly threw the door and his hand backward, then pressed down on the hilt of his sword. He was about to turn around and pull out his sword to perform 7 consecutive stabs. However, that brat seemed to have seen through his thoughts. He chuckled from behind and said, "Snotty Prince, are you sure you want to face me head-on? My trash divine ability is already unbearably thirsty for it." Hearing this, young Master Wu Hen's figure paused for a moment, and he was startled. Not good. How could I forget this matter? He immediately began to consider how confident he was in blocking Sun Lang's sneak attack with his sword, but the next moment, Sun Lang's voice sounded again. I'm sorry, I forgot. In fact, it's the same behind." Chapter 196. Sun Lang, who was behind him, said faintly, "Sigh, I forgot. It's the same behind." The fine hairs on young Master Wu Hen's body stood erect. It was as if he had sensed an unprecedented crisis approaching. However, everything had happened too quickly. A drop of essential balm, flying into the flowers, flying. In the next moment, young Master Ruthless' eyes suddenly widened. His mouth involuntarily opened, and he sucked in a breath of cold air like a whale sucking in water. As a martial artist, he had tempered his muscles and bones since childhood, tempering his body. He should have long since become accustomed to pain. But there were some pains that humans couldn't endure, just like there were some body parts that couldn't be trained in martial arts. With his limited knowledge and vocabulary, he simply couldn't use words to accurately describe what kind of feeling it was. If Sun Lang were to describe this feeling, he would definitely say with a serious face that it was like Uzumaki Naruto and Uzumaki Boruto pressed him to the ground, and then directly rubbed a Rasengan on his back. Then the noble young master in white robes looked up to the sky and howled. Even his scream was still so cool. A drop of tears splashed from the corner of his eye and shattered into specks of starlight, drifting away with the wind. It made his scream sound so tragic. Oh, hi! The extreme heat after the iciness, the pain of his muscles continuously twitching and contracting, and the frightening feeling of being pounded around by a red-hot mace. Everything was so familiar and left a deep impression on him. Young Master Wu Hen seemed to recall something. Clenching his teeth, He endured the maddening pain. Regaining his senses, he said word by word, "Original. Come on. Yes. You." As soon as he finished speaking, he unsheathed his sword. With a sonorous hum, the sharp blade flew like a meteor, sweeping towards Sun Lang's throat. However, his figure flickered, and this sudden and swift stab, which was filled with anger, unexpectedly missed. Even young Master Wu Hen was stunned for a moment. He saw the two people hugging each other fly backwards. Soon after, the youngster's loud shouts could be heard. F***CK. 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 Inluo, thank you for saving me. You almost became a widow just now. You really do love me. As expected, it was this woman. Young Master Ruthless glanced at Zhang Yinluo, and his expression became solemn. This woman had been following behind him with a ghost-like movement technique while hugging a man. No matter how he changed positions, he couldn't avoid her. Now, she was hugging Sun Lang and dodging his unexpected quicksword. Even with the help of the Imperial Army's Taoist charm of the Jinghong sword, this kind of qigong was rarely seen in the world, but the moment he was distracted, an intense pain came from an indescribable part of his body. The aggro bar that had just been emptied was instantly filled again. He roared, raised his sword, and rushed towards the two of them. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. Today, I will tear you to shreds. Behind him, the old boxer also rushed over with a vicious gust of wind. Oh, you little slut, you're dead. The situation changed again. Young Master Ruthless' clothes were as white as snow, while the old boxer's aura was overflowing. One side was elegant, while the other side was filthy, making people's hair stand on end. These two enemies with the strongest martial arts were full of killing intent as they roared and rushed over. Zhang Yinluo had never seen such a frightening battle in his life. For a moment, he was flustered. He ran for his life while shouting, "What are you doing?" Sun Lang's tone was still indifferent. I wanted him to subconsciously rush forward while in pain and pleasure, so that he would collide with that shit-eater. It would be an ultimate showdown between elegance and filth. "Sorry, I messed it up," Zhang Yinluo said angrily. "You're a big scammer. Now we have to face these two people." On the other side, young Master Ruthless attacked several times, but all of them missed. Every time, he was just a hair's breadth away from taking that brat's head, but every time he was just a hair's breadth away. However, because young Master Ruthless was so pretentious, although he was mad with anger, he was still rational. He immediately came up with a plan in his heart. The plan now was to separate these two people and let this woman with outstanding qigong play hide-and-seek with old Qi. In any case, I just want to kill this bastard. Therefore, he attacked several more times and then shouted, "Heroine, you can't resist the two of us while carrying this person. Do you see? I'm just a little bit away from taking his life. You're a woman, and your strength is limited. You can carry him and run for your life now, but what about after the time it takes to burn a stick of incense? Your strength will be exhausted sooner or later, and he will be killed by me sooner or later. And you, who have wasted your precious strength, will be caught by old Qi sooner or later. Why don't you make a prompt decision and throw this brat down? My only target is this brat, and I will never find trouble with you." Sun Lang blinked and also shouted, "Yinluo, this snot-nosed young master is right. I can't implicate you. Quickly put me down and run for your life." Zhang Yinluo said angrily, "Shut up." In the eyes of outsiders, she was using her outstanding agility and lightness skill to carry Sun Lang and dodge left and right. Not only was she able to keep up with young Master Wu Hen's agility, but she was also able to dodge the opponent's lightning-fast sword. But as the person involved, she was completely dumbfounded from beginning to end. She was only passively carried by Sun Lang and flew back and forth. Unfortunately, this bastard had been so secretive that he had actually kept those two experts in the dark. In this kind of situation, how could she dare to put down Sun Lang and run for her life? At that time, Sun Lang would most likely beat this snot-nosed young master to the ground with a few punches and kicks. Then, he would watch as he was chased up and down by that terrifying T-man. Then, he would take advantage of the situation by saying something. For example, he would force him to say something or make some conditions before he would save him. When Sun Lang heard her words, he became even more energetic. This shameless bastard immediately took advantage of the situation and showed his middle finger to the snot-nosed young master. Did you see that? Did you see that? This is my wife. How could she leave me behind? The love between us is stronger than gold. If I want to be on top, I'll be on top. If I want to be on the bottom, I'll be on the bottom. If I want to be in front, I'll be in front. If I want to be behind, I'll be behind. So what if your martial arts are poor? My wife's martial arts are very good. This guy is taking advantage of the situation right now. You bastard. Zhang Yinluo was so angry that smoke was coming out of her 7 orifices. She almost wanted to throw this bastard out, but when she thought of the serious consequences of doing so, she sullenly rejected this tempting idea. The pain in Zhang Baobao's heart right now was enough to summon a blizzard in June. It was enough to make her spit out blood. She fiercely pinched Sun Lang and angrily roared, "Stop talking nonsense. Hurry up and think of a way. What are you doing? Do you want this to continue?" Sun Lang spread his hands and said, "I originally wanted them to hurt each other, but I miscalculated this guy's endurance." He actually didn't lose his mind? Is it because Sima Ping's essential bomb wasn't strong enough? Or does he usually pay attention to training his sphincter muscles? TSK, TSK, TSK. This person is so disgusting. All right, I still have to think of a way to make them hurt each other. AI, if only there was the cold snow crow's secondhand smoke. Zhang Yinluo was like a puppet. She was passively led by Sun Lang to dodge left and right. Young Master Wu Hin continuously attacked, and the old boxer's roar was like thunder. Everything made her tremble in fear. She shouted, "What are you talking about? It's something that can make people hallucinate." At this point, Sun Lang seemed to have thought of something. He suddenly raised his head. Huh? Chapter 197. When Sun Lang and Zhang Yinluo teamed up to pull the aggro of the 2 most ferocious enemies, the onlookers hiding on the sidelines didn't stay idle either. The group of ruffians that Hu Shouxin had found had already run away when they saw that the situation was not good. Fortunately, the 4 thugs on young Master Wu Hin's side had basically lost their ability to fight. A certain someone had not only spiced their chickens with bomb, but also used underhanded means when he dealt the final blow. Although he boasted that he was a vegetarian recently, he wouldn't go so far as to kill them, but it was still easy for him to make these guys lose their ability to fight for a short period of time. Therefore, apart from Miss Zhao, Sima Ping, and Miss Zhao, there was only Hu Shouxin, who was in a subtle and complicated mood. Although he had known about Sun Lang's moral character for many years, this guy's performance still opened his eyes. Old Hu touched the headscarf wrapped around his head and said with a complicated tone, "I haven't seen him for a few years, but he has really become more and more shameless." On this side, Miss Zhao's expression was anxious. In her heart, it could be said that she was anxious and jealous. She was anxious because her Sun Lang was being chased by 2 perverts. She was jealous because that lowly cow spirit actually had the face to hug Sun Lang's back. Zhao Fei Huang thought for a moment, then raised her hand like a trumpet and shouted loudly, "Sun Lang, listen to me. Quickly throw the cow spirit to the other side and take the opportunity to escape." She shouted a few times, but she didn't know if the other side didn't hear her. In short, Sun Lang didn't move. Miss Zhao stomped her feet and became more and more anxious. If it was a martial arts expert, it would be easy to deal with. At most, she would use force to suppress him, lure him with money, and force him with power. If it was an ordinary person covered in feces, then it would be easy to deal with. With a large reward, there would be brave men. There would always be people who weren't afraid of death who would be willing to risk everything and think of a way to take down the feces person. However, if a martial arts expert was drenched in feces, then he was simply unstoppable. Miss Zhao had no room to display her wisdom. However, she quickly recognized Hu Shouxin. Although Hu Huaishou was dressed like a bandit, covering his face and head and giving off a ferocious aura, Ms. Zhao recognized Hu Shouxin at a glance. She remembered his illustrious reputation on the Tianyuan battlefield and quickly lifted her skirt and ran over. Hu Huaishou, please shoot an arrow to help. Hu Shouxin glanced at Sun Lang in the middle of the field. There were some things that young Master Wu Hin couldn't understand, but Hu Shouxin could. Old Hu spat, hell my ass. Can't you see that he's having fun? Miss Zhao was startled, but then she heard noises coming from the other side. Sun Lang and Zhang Yinluo rushed over. The ranger shouted, Miss Zhao, Yinluo has agreed. Come on, let's have a threesome. Zhao Feihuang didn't understand Sun Lang's vulgar words, nor did she know what he wanted to do. However, all of this was not important. As long as she could be with Sun Lang, killing and arson was nothing. She looked at Sun Lang, who was rushing over, and revealed a gentle and beautiful smile. She opened her hands, ignoring Su Qingluan's anxious shouts, and greeted him. Sun Lang hug. An arm wrapped around her slender waist and took her into the air. She faced the wind and heard the whistling sound in her ears. It was so distant that it felt like a lifetime ago. In an instant, her heart felt incomparably tranquil and ethereal, making her feel infinitely beautiful. She even hoped that time would stop just like this forever, forever. With the two of them leaning against each other, she slowly leaned to her side. That body was so warm, so soft, and had a faint fragrance that refreshed her heart. Soft? Fragrance? Refreshed her heart. Miss Zhao opened her eyes. What she saw was not Sun Lang's handsome and unusually handsome face, but a coquettish and debauched face of a cow spirit who used her chest to seduce people. At this time, her face was full of displeasure as she squinted at her. Zhao Feihuang blinked and immediately complained, It's so disgusting. Your face, Zhang Yinluo choked and said angrily, It's you who is disgusting. With your eyes closed, you haven't been touched by Sun Lang yet, and you look like you're in heat. Don't you feel ashamed? I'm willing. When it came to quarreling, Miss Zhao had never been afraid of anyone. Without even thinking, she retorted sarcastically, You've been relying on Sun Lang since the beginning, taking advantage of the chaos to take advantage of my Sun Lang. Isn't it very comfortable for your despicable breasts to squeeze Sun Lang's body? You're also a woman. You're so shameless to confuse black and white. In order to cater to Sun Lang, you don't even care about the most basic logic. Who's taking advantage of who? You don't know how happy this guy is. Zhang Yinluo just wanted to refute, but Miss Zhao continued. What? Do you think I'm wrong? Didn't you take the initiative to take advantage of Sun Lang? Didn't you want to stick to Sun Lang? Well, prove it to me. Let go now. If you think Sun Lang is taking advantage of you, then let go quickly. As a lady of a noble family, you should respect yourself. This attack hit Miss Zhang's soft spot. Let go now. She heard the roar of the old boxer, and her heart suddenly jumped. For a moment, she was in a dilemma. She subconsciously pinched Sun Lang and said loudly, You've taken advantage of me for so long. Say something for me. And did you pull this woman here just to let her laugh at me? Sun Lang, who had been silently making a fortune, was a little embarrassed. He turned his head and looked at Zhao Feihuang. Miss Zhao, I want to ask you to do me a favor. In front of Sun Lang, Miss Zhao was as obedient as a kitten. She narrowed her eyes and promised, No problem. Do you want to take off this cow's clothes? Zhang Yinluo said angrily, How dare you? If you dare, I'll throw you away. In order to prevent Sun Lang and Miss Zhao from coming into contact with each other, Zhang Yinluo was responsible for catching Miss Zhao. Now, the scene was magnificent. Miss Zhang had Sun Lang in her left hand and Zhao Feihuang in her right hand. She grabbed the two of them and ran wildly, leaving young Master Wu Hin and the old boxer far behind her. The old boxer was furious, but young Master Wu Hin was shocked and angry. This woman was grabbing two people, but her speed was not slow. Her qinggong was really too high. But why didn't she simply turn around and resist? Why did she just run away? Sun Lang took this opportunity to whisper quickly, Miss Zhao, listen to my command in a moment, and then use the soul-absorbing technique you learned from the demonic tool to influence that dung eater. Miss Zhao stared blankly. Then, she revealed a difficult expression and shook her head. I can't, Sun Lang. The power of this demonic tool has many limitations. That dung eater's martial arts are very high, and his mind is firm. At this time, he's bristling with anger, and his essence, qi, and spirit are as sharp as swords. I can't control him. I'm sorry, Sun Lang. The power of my demonic tool is still very weak. I haven't had enough time to train it. It's okay. Sun Lang showed her a gentle smile. If I say you can do it, you can do it. Come, take my hand. Chapter 198. It's fine. Sun Lang gave her a gentle smile. If I say you can do it, then you can do it. Come, hold my hand. Miss Zhao was stunned at first. Facing Sun Lang's outstretched hand, she reached out her slender hand without hesitation. Their fingers touched in the air, and then they held each other. The pleasure of the body, the satisfaction of the mind, and the throbbing of the soul. The feeling of happiness swarmed over, as if a warm current was flowing through her entire body, causing Zhao Feihuang to involuntarily narrow her eyes and let out a delicate moan that caused one's mind to stir. Even Sun Lang's heart couldn't help but jump when he saw the young girl's alluring appearance, her sparkling eyes, and her blushing cheeks. Zhang Yinluo's subtle laughter rang out. Are the two of you having fun? A mistake, a mistake, a mistake, a mistake, a mistake. Sun Lang laughed dryly, his eyes slightly focused. In an instant, the startling sword at Zhang Yinluo's waist let out a strange hum. Not far away, Hu Shouxin, who was watching coldly from the sidelines, also had a change in expression. Purple lightning circled around his body, letting out a light sound as it pierced through the air. And Zhao Feihuang, who was intertwined with Sun Lang's 5 fingers, directly faced this indescribable mysterious power. She was neither a martial artist who refined spirit into qi, nor was she a cultivator who learned from heaven and earth. She couldn't accurately describe the essence of the power that came from Sun Lang's body. She only knew that the power of the magic tool that remained in her body, which had always been lifeless and somewhat disobedient, seemed to have received the most thorough nourishment. In a moment, it became unprecedentedly strong. She felt an incomparably active mental power churning in her mind. In an instant, the appearance of heaven and earth changed, and everything became completely different. This lifeless, dull, and still world seemed to have come to life. This brand new perception and experience was so similar to what she felt when she first obtained the power of the magic tool. The magic tool's ability to control one's mind and soul was instantly increased to an unimaginable level. Hu Shouxin, who had been watching from the sidelines, had a complicated expression on his face. He sighed and said in a low voice, "This power has actually been used by you to play around. Sun Lang, do you really hate the past so much?" Sun Lang had a smile on his face, as if he was showing off his little toy. He asked Zhao Feihuang, "How is it? How do you feel?" On the other side, Miss Zhao, who had been given a buff, felt very good. She smiled gently, and her smile was like 100 flowers blooming. She raised her other hand and said, "Sun Lang, I'm ready to turn this milk cow into a beep. That only belongs to you." The ranger nodded solemnly and said, "Very good, Miss Leluxia. Give her a chicken and duck death." Hey, what are you going to do?" Zhang Yinluo asked anxiously. "The 2 guys behind us are catching up. If you think of a way, hurry up and use it. You really don't have a sense of humor." Sun Lang waved his hand and said, "Come, Miss Zhao. Prepare your spiritual power. Remember, although your soul-sucking power has been strengthened, the strength of your soul has not. It can be said that your foundation is not stable. If you want to forcibly control a martial artist of that level, you will still encounter strong resistance and backlash. However, the soul-sucking and mind-controlling technique does not necessarily have to turn the target into a controllable puppet. Spiritual suggestion, illusion construction, memory weaving, personality distortion. These are the strengths of spiritual power, so you don't have to try to control that shit-eating ghost. You just need to do this and this. There's a little trick, let me tell you. Zhao Feihuang's eyes lit up as she listened. She pursed her lips and smiled. Sun Lang knows this too? You know a lot. Sun Lang was stunned for a moment, and then he chuckled and said, if I could, I wouldn't want to know these things. Okay, shout out a cool line, and then do it. Line? Miss Zhao blinked her big eyes. What line? The line when you use your big move. For example, something like, your mind is clear, or I know your thoughts. Sun Lang raised a finger. The two of them leaned on Zhang Yinluo's shoulders like this, and leisurely discussed these messy things with the girl who was running wildly between them. Or, a little Chinibyu, Zhao Feihuang of the Marquis of Jing'an's household gives an order and so on. Zhao Feihuang frowned as she listened. It feels very strange, just like those little brats who don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Zhang Yinluo shouted, whatever. Hurry up and get rid of that guy. Sun Lang sighed. All right. Let's do this. Miss Zhao, let me tell you, this time you can just call me that. A moment later, Zhao Feihuang turned her head, and a pair of limpid autumn eyes were suffused with a demonic purple light. Formless spiritual power instantly appeared, refracting into the soul and imprinting itself in the depths of the old boxer's soul. It's not Prince. Zhao Feihuang's clothes and hair danced in the wind as she shouted resolutely, face the wind. Prince Wuhan, who was brandishing his sword in pursuit, was slightly stunned. What did she mean? But in the next moment, a vicious wind blew from behind him, and a fist came crashing down. Prince Wuhan sensed it, and with a backhand, he stabbed 6 times at lightning speed. The sword light and the fist collided, and an enormous force came crashing down. Prince Wuhan took advantage of the force to fly back, covering his mouth and nose as he shouted angrily, Elder Qi, what are you doing? The old boxer seemed to be unaware. Like a giant dung beetle that had gone crazy, he stared fixedly at Prince Wuhan, his eyes shooting out endless hatred as he roared, little slut, I'm going to beat you to death with my fists. After saying this, another fist came crashing down. The fierce fist wind also carried a poison attribute attack, which was very powerful. It wasn't difficult to parry his fist, but it was simply the most terrifying thing in the world to have a human feces covered in filth get close to you. Prince Wuhan had no choice but to dodge. But for some reason, Elder Qi seemed to be deranged, mistaking him for that big-breasted woman with outstanding lightness skills. Elder Qi began to madly chase after him, punching and kicking him. His eyes were filled with endless hatred, as if he wanted to dismember him on the spot. The situation had just taken a turn for the better, and now it had become like this. Prince Wuhan almost vomited blood. He had no choice but to evade the old boxer's pursuit while shouting loudly, trying to call back his reason. However, it was of no use, because the culprit who had caused all this had stopped to take a break and was constantly improving the attack program and mental cloud diagram of this human feces. Sun Lang rubbed his chin and moved closer to Zhao Feihuang, while Zhang Yinluo stood on the side, bent over, holding his legs and gasping for breath. Sun Lang glanced sideways at Zhang Yinluo's perfect chest, which was dangling in the air because of his bending over, and said to Zhao Feihuang in all seriousness, this old baldy doesn't seem to know how to play. Give him a psychological hint and tell him that this is how the profession of a dung eater should be played. A moment later, the old boxer, who was chasing after Prince Wuhan, was in a trance for a moment. When he came back to his senses, he seemed to have thought of something. He reached out and wiped his body. Then, with a roar, he slammed his palm heavily in the direction of Prince Wuhan from several feet away. Chapter 199. At this time, the old boxer had already shifted his target of hatred to young Master Wuhan. Between the two, it was difficult to tell who was stronger within 1,000 moves. But after all, in martial arts, everyone had their own strengths. The old boxer was good at punching and kicking, his lower body was extremely stable, and his hard body skills were astonishing. On the other hand, young Master Wuhan was good at swift swords, paying particular attention to the nimbleness of his sword. His lightness skill was superb, and he was best at flying and fighting. So he ran wildly and fled in a sorry state. For a moment, the old boxer couldn't catch up to him. But that was the end of it. After Miss Zhao updated the tactical module, this poop man learned a new move by accident and sent a palm strike at young Master Wuhan from a distance. It must be known that the world was vast, and martial arts that could injure people from 100 steps away still existed in legends. At least in young Master Wuhan's eyes, the old boxer's air-splitting palm strike was inexplicable and didn't pose any threat. After all, with Elder Chi's strength, it was impossible for him to use his internal energy more than 20 feet away from him. He could only strike air from such a distance. Young Master Wuhan observed the situation behind him from the corner of his eyes and couldn't help but find it funny. Could it be that Elder Chi's mind had been messed up by feces? But in an instant, his complexion changed dramatically. This was because the wind carried not only Elder Chi's violent roar, but also the soft sound of some small objects piercing through the air. In his great shock, he wanted to block with his sword, but on second thought, how could he bear to do so? So, he forcibly suppressed the impulse to swing his sword and hurriedly dodged to the left. With a series of soft sounds, several small holes were smashed in the ground. He focused his eyes, and his stomach churned. It turned out that the things Elder Chi had smeared all over his body had been pushed out by his firm and fierce palm strike, turning them into extremely fast and terrifying hidden weapons. F*CK, 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 F*CK. How am I supposed to play this? He was so shocked and angry that he almost cursed out loud. The old boxer's attack had succeeded, so he immediately used the same trick again. His hands flicked and swung, and for a moment flying pellets fell like rain. This frightening attack caused young Master Wuhan to be incomparably terrified. He used all of his strength to dodge left and right, avoiding the rain of death. If this was a digitalized game, then his experience in Qigong would definitely skyrocket. Sun Lang watched with relish. F*CK, F*CK. He can even dodge that? I didn't expect this snot prince to play the legend of the Pearl of the East. At the very least, he could reach the six-sided boss Pure Fox. He thought for a moment and said to Ms. Zhao beside him, "I'll make a talisman card for that dung eater." After young Master Wuhan dodged another heavenly maiden scatter, he glanced around and saw everyone watching the show. For a moment, anger filled his chest. Although he didn't know why Elder Chi had become like this, there was no doubt that the main culprit behind all of this was that brat with an extremely cheap smile. This was all his fault. He must not let him go. He glanced at the old boxer, who was roaring and doing horrible things behind him. He gritted his teeth and made up his mind. In this case, you can't stay out of this. Sun Lang and young Master Wuhan's eyes met. Using the heart of a scumbag to measure young Master Wuhan's abdomen, he easily determined his goal and immediately shouted, "Everyone be careful. This guy wants to lead the monsters to us." At this moment, Zhang Yinluo, who was paying close attention to the battle and had yet to recover from the shock, immediately let out a cry of alarm. She recalled the terrifying scene of being chased by the old boxer and instinctively reacted without thinking. She took out a surströmming single-soldier defensive grenade from her tactical satchel and threw it out with a standard vertical throwing motion. If it was said that young Master Wuhan had learned something from today's disaster, then that was to maintain the greatest distance from this group of people. Stay away, stay away, stay away from them, and stay away from everything they took out. Therefore, although young Master Wuhan didn't know what that strange thing the big-breasted woman threw out was, he instantly felt his hair stand on end and fled in another direction as fast as he could. With a boom sound, the canned food exploded in midair. The gunpowder on the canned food sprayed out the contents of the canned food and splashed downwards. Then, as luck would have it, It splashed onto the old boxer, who had just rushed over. The several onlookers gasped at the same time. Hiss! They looked at Zhang Yin Luo with horror and condemnation in their eyes. No matter what, hurting an old man 3 times a row was simply too much. When Child Hatred heard the explosion, he turned around to take a look. However, what assaulted his nostrils was a terrifying aura that was even more fishy and terrifying than that. He saw that the old boxer, who was like a mad tiger, was covered in a strange, milky, white substance. At this moment, he stopped moving and seemed to have fallen into infinite shock. The empty can fell from the air with a thud and smashed onto his bald head. Even though he felt that the old boxer was an old man who took advantage of his seniority, and even though he felt that Elder Chi was an old man who liked to put on airs and meddle in other people's business, after all, they were colleagues. His appearance made young Master Wuhan feel a common enemy. He looked at Zhang Yin Luo and said sternly, "Your Excellency's martial arts are superior. Why do you use such despicable means again and again?" Zhang Yin Luo, the LV, 5 scapegoat ability, was at a loss for words. Superior martial arts? Superior, your deadhead. If this old lady's martial arts were superior, I would have beaten this old man when I saved Sima Ping. Why did it have to be like this? She faced the accusation of young Master Wuhan's righteous eyes and endured the sidelong glances of the people around her that said, "This person is so scary. He doesn't know how to respect the elderly at all." The depression in her heart couldn't be expressed in words. But at this moment, Elder Chi, who had been attacked by the canned herring and had paused for a moment, came back to his senses. He revealed a sinister smile and then looked up to the sky and laughed wildly. This move again, but it's useless. Little bitch, the same move won't work on me twice. The current me has nothing to fear. The current me will definitely kill you on the spot." He was covered in filth, but when he said those words, the indomitable determination and willpower in his tone still shone in the sky, causing everyone to admire him. For a moment, when they saw his appearance, when they saw his determination to never give up, the hearts of everyone present surged, and they felt some admiration for him. They felt that if he killed Zhang Yin Luo, it would be a feeling of justice finally defeating evil. But the premise was, he set his target. Oh. Today, I'll let you suffer the pain I suffered. The canned herring that was poured down couldn't hurt the old boxer in the slightest. Instead, it provided him with new special ammunition. The old boxer chased after young Master Wuhan and roared again and again, constantly releasing long-range splash attacks. The pressure on young Master Wuhan suddenly increased. Not only did the old boxer obtain a new spirit buff, but he also used special ammunition. The long-range attacks were like a storm, tiring him out. What should have been an elegant and victorious hunt had unexpectedly turned out like this. He never dreamed that he would fall into such a desperate situation. The terrifying aura behind him, the fallen companions, the setback of failure, and the mental exhaustion. He looked back at the little girl in the distance with mixed feelings in his heart. The murderous intent behind him was like a thorn in his back. In the rain of feces, thousands of words converged into one sentence. "Junior sister, save me." Chapter 200. Little junior sister, save me. The snot-nosed young master let out such a sorrowful cry in desperation. In an instant, Sun Lang's dog eyes lit up. He looked around and said, "Hey, where? Zhang Yinluo squinted and said, "Hey, what are you looking for?" The paladin did not turn his head and said, "Of course, I'm looking for the legendary little junior sister who is as cold as ice or as beautiful as jade. Anyway, in the end, she won't take advantage of big senior brother." Sneaky, vulgar eyes. He must be thinking of something improper. Zhang Yinluo curled his lips and looked around vigilantly. Could it be that he is hiding some helpers in the dark? Alas, this grudge is getting bigger and bigger. It's inexplicable. Sun Lang squinted at him and said, "Aren't you the one who started this war?" Zhang Yinluo was tongue-tied and laughed awkwardly. At this moment, Sima Ping hesitated and said, I always feel that his little junior sister seems to be calling me. The ranger's eyes flashed, and he sneered, "You're thinking too much. Look at this snot-nosed young master. His clothes are as white as snow, and his posture is light and graceful. He's so pretentious and powerful. Presumably, his junior sister must be an elegant and ethereal fairy with a big chest. Most importantly, he called her junior sister, not junior brother." When he said this, he deliberately glanced at Sima Ping's chest. His meaning was self-evident. It was better than 1,000 words, as if he was caring for a girl with a broken chest. Sima Ping was furious and said, "Do you want to fight? Do you want to fight?" Sun Lang clapped his hands and concluded, "There doesn't seem to be anyone around. Well, I roughly understand what's going on." This snot-nosed young master was about to be violated by the old grandpa, who was smeared with a foul white liquid. In his panic, he subconsciously shouted out such a line. However, his powerful little junior sister was far away at this time. Although she had an inexplicable feeling, she did not take action. It's similar to Bai Sinen's situation. He turned to Zhao Fei Huang and said, "Come, let this snotty-nosed young master practice the secondary male Dao." But in the next moment, young Master Wuhan's voice rang out once more. Junior sister, for the sake of Martial Uncle Ping, please save me. I'm not your enemy." Sima Ping was shocked and looked at Sun Lang. The paladin looked at her calmly and said kindly, "Think about it. You've been studying medicine with your master for a few years. Every year, during the 4 seasons and 8 festivals, has anyone from your master come to visit you?" The girl shook her head. Only Sister Zhao sent someone to deliver gifts, and the villagers at the foot of the mountain and the patients who were cured. Other than that, there was no one else. Sun Lang spread out his hands and said, "Then he should be a liar." In order to protect himself, he said some nonsense, trying to buy some time to breathe. Before he could finish, young Master Wuhan shouted like a machine gun, "Junior sister, I didn't lie to you. Ever since I was a child, I joined the Green Sack sect to study the art of healing. Halfway through, I switched to martial arts, but I'm still considered a disciple of the sect. You can ask me any questions you want. I can answer them all. At the very least, you could take me to see Martial Uncle Ping. I saw him when I was young. He will definitely recognize me." After he finished speaking, he picked out a few of the sect's incantations and key points. He was eloquent and not wrong at all. When Sima Ping heard this, she believed most of it, but when she heard that he wanted to see her master, she became slightly vigilant and shouted, "Then why were you so rude before?" Young Master Wuhan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "How was I rude? At that time, my nasal cavity was in pain and my head was dizzy. When I suddenly saw our sect's pulse-taking technique, my mind was agitated and I subconsciously grabbed your hand and started to ask questions. Maybe I used too much strength and hurt you. I apologize to you here. I will make it up to you in the future." Sima Ping still frowned and said, "You even let that fierce old grandpa grab me. I only asked Elder Qi to bring you back, that's all." Young Master Wuhan shouted, "Did he hit you? Did he scold you? Did he say he wanted to kill you?" It seems like he didn't. Sima Ping was a loss for words and subconsciously glanced at Zhang Yinluo. That old man indeed wanted to bring her back from the beginning. Other than that, he didn't try to kill her and didn't appear very fierce. Then eldest Miss Zhang noticed Sima Ping's gaze and said angrily, What are you looking at? Are you blaming me?" All of this seemed to have become a mess. Sima Ping's mind was in a mess, and she turned to look at Sun Lang. "Hey, what should we do?" Sun Lang waved his hand gloomily. "This person can't be left alive. It's better to silence her." "I almost forgot." Sima Ping rolled her eyes. "You offended him so badly that you must be afraid of his revenge." She looked at Zhao Fei Huang. "Sister Zhao, what do you think we should do?" Young Miss Zhao glanced at Sun Lang and waved her hand gloomily. "This person can't be left alive. It's better to silence her." "I forgot again." Sima Ping sighed. "It seems that as long as Sun Lang makes his stand, Sister Zhao will stand with him unconditionally, right?" Zhao Fei Huang blinked and put her hands behind her back. She smiled and stuck out her tongue embarrassedly. Sima Ping sighed and made up her mind. She said softly, let's do it like this. If he's really my master's nephew and my senior brother, I can't sit by and watch him suffer such a thing. So, Sister Zhao, Sun Lang, please stop. Of course, I'll try my best to persuade him not to find trouble with you. Sun Lang narrowed his eyes. Have you thought it through? Sima Ping hesitated and nodded. Yes, I have. Since he's not a bad person, he shouldn't have encountered such a thing. Let's stop as soon as possible. Sun Lang shook his head. Forget it, as long as you're happy. Although he wanted to ask this snot-nosed young master some things, since they were related, it would be interesting. It would be the same if he asked his master directly. Good, good. Thinking of this, Sun Lang showed a compassionate look and nodded. Miss Zhao, let's solve this benefactor Qi's suffering. Zhao Fei Huang said with a subtle expression. What does Sun Lang mean? Let him wake up and face this cruel reality again. The paladin said seriously, every injustice has its perpetrator and every debt has its debtor. Let this old man return to his original heart. It might not be a bad thing. Miss Zhao understood and nodded. I understand. After all, this matter seems to be our fault first. We can't make the same mistake again. That. Hearing the conversation between the two, Zhang Yinluo's expression changed several times. Suddenly, a bashful look appeared on his face, and he moved closer to them. His fingers subconsciously tapped his chest as he blushed and said, do you have any way to make him forget about it? Zhao Feihuang's expression was cold. No, get lost. Fortunately, Zhang Yinluo had already adapted to this guy's malicious words and knew that begging Zhao Feihuang was useless. As long as Sun Lang nodded, it meant that Miss Sun Lang also nodded. So her face was full of smiles, and she said to Sun Lang, I know that I seem to be a little impulsive in this matter, but I also reasoned with him at that time. That old man. Sun Lang waved his hand and said impatiently, It's useless to say this. If you have a request from me, you should do some small work. Here it comes. This guy is here to loot a burning house. Zhang Yinluo's heart trembled, but people under the eaves had to bow their heads. She could only smile and say, What work? Sun Lang said righteously, pausing after each word, Please act spoiled. Chapter 201. After the catastrophe, it was a complete mess. The old boxer had fainted on the ground, unconscious. According to Miss Zhao, he would sleep for a full day and night, comprehending all kinds of great Daos in his dreams. Finally, he would forget the past and achieve great harmony in his life. Young Master Wu Hin's 4 subordinates also received the same treatment. He stood alone in the same place and looked back. The stench around him was overwhelming. His companions had fallen to the ground one by one, bearing a heavy defeat that they should not have had to bear. The 4 masters had only been beaten up by a group of hooligans in the chaos. Elder Qi's experience was really lamentable and pitiful. Failure was not terrible. What was terrible was that the method of failure was too shocking. What was even more terrible was that he did not know if his side still had a chance to take revenge. Brother, I'm really sorry. A low and guilt-filled voice sounded from behind. Young Master Wu Hin turned around and saw the little hooligan who called himself Sun Lang with a serious face. He cupped his hands and said, When 2 sides fight, each side relies on their own methods. Your martial arts are so good that I didn't want to lose, so I had no choice but to use this method. There is nothing else to say. However, this matter was planned by me and has nothing to do with others. Every injustice has its perpetrator, and every debt has its debtor. If young master cannot accept today's humiliation and wants to take revenge, please come to me. Do not implicate others. My home address is... Young Master Wu Hin originally did not have a good impression of Sun Lang. If it were not for the humiliating agreement and some other reasons, he would have already drawn his sword and hacked this boy to death on the spot. But at this moment, the other party had actually calmly said such words. Moreover, his expression and tone were sincere. It did not seem like he was pretending or hypocritical, as if he really did not mind him coming to take revenge. This caused young Master Wu Hin's heart to stir. He did not expect this hooligan of the marketplace to have the courage to take responsibility for his actions. Although he was a hooligan, he was not completely useless, but in the next moment a slender hand grabbed Sun Lang's collar and dragged him to the back. "Shut up, you talk too much." Young Master Wuhan's eyes narrowed. The woman who had dragged Sun Lang to the back was one of the reasons why he didn't dare to kill Sun Lang on the spot. This woman was exceptionally mysterious. Her martial arts were extremely high, but her eccentricity was extremely heavy. She seemed to like to use excrement to deal with her enemies. She was the one who had continuously thrown lump after lump of excrement onto Old Chi's head, toying with him as she pleased. However, her qigong was so strong that it didn't seem like it belonged to the human world. Carrying the two of them, she moved like the wind and lightning, toying with young Master Wuhan and old boxer Master Qi in the palm of her hand. There was no doubt that she was the most terrifying person present. No matter from which aspect, she was the most terrifying enemy that young Master Wuhan was most unwilling to face. Zhang Yinluo dragged Sun Lang back and interrupted his words. Then, he gave young Master Wuhan a meaningful glance, telling him to be careful and not run to Sun Lang's door to seek death. "This look, are you threatening me?" Young Master Wuhan's heart trembled. He didn't know where this little ruffian surnamed Sun had gotten the ability to actually climb up to such a large backer. It seemed that even if he had the heart to take revenge, he would have to consider it at length. Moreover, there were currently two important matters that were much more important than today's humiliation. The proper business was more important, and personal matters could only be considered at length. He first glanced at the incomparably beautiful master and servant pair, his heart thumping wildly. Previously, these people had already exposed their identities with just a few words. If his guess wasn't wrong, that elegant noble lady in a long gown was the eldest miss of Marquis Jinggan Fu, Zhao Fei Huang. The change in the demonic tool, the death of Horned Tiger, and even the fact that they had been dispatched to Mingzhou City to secretly investigate this matter, all of this had happened because of this woman. Without any effort at all, he withdrew his gaze and lowered his eyelids. However, he didn't know that Sun Lang had just glanced at him as if nothing had happened, and the corner of his mouth revealed a subtle smile. As for the other matter, young Master Wuhan looked at Sima Ping again. This little girl was indeed his junior sister, and her master, Ping Adao, should have been the sect's inverse lifeblade, martial Uncle Ping, more than 10 years ago. This martial uncle had disagreed with the sect's elders in his early years and left in anger. Soon after, he disappeared without a trace, and no one knew where he went. This was something that everyone in the sect knew. However, young Master Wuhan had coincidentally found out that the mystery of martial Uncle Ping's disappearance seemed to involve the sect's top secret and an important secret. And no matter what, as a junior of the sect, he ought to pay his respects to martial uncle. Just as he was pondering, Zhao Fei Huang brought Sima Ping over. "Young Master Snot, according to our previous agreement, please allow little sister Ping to perform acupuncture on you, sealing your meridians and acupoints, and sealing your martial arts. Then, follow little sister Ping to see Senior Strange Doctor and ask him to confirm your identity and decide whether you live or die. As for your companions, I will temporarily send people to take care of them, clean them, and settle them down. What do you think?" Young Master Wuhan took a deep breath. The calamity had passed, and his scattered pretentiousness had been picked up again. He gently nodded and said, "It should be like this. Let's do as Miss Zhao says. Junior sister, please perform the acupuncture." "Don't call me junior sister. Master still hasn't acknowledged you." Sima Ping pouted, but her hands weren't careless. She took out the silver needles from her bag and waved them lightly. Her strength was scattered, and the needles were like the wind. Her acupuncture skills had already reached a certain level. Sun Lang, who was watching from the side, explained in a low voice, "Enter the cave." The flat-chested girl, Sima Ping, used a long and flexible tool to insert it into young Master Wuhan's 3 major acupoints at the same time. Zhang Yinluo remained silent. He elbowed Sun Lang, right in the chest. "Shut up. Everything that comes out of your mouth has a different flavor." The ranger said with a smile, "Don't forget, you said you would act spoiled for me when we get back. Don't go back on your word." Zhao Fei Huang said nonchalantly from the side, "You don't have to be afraid of going back on your word. I have a way to make this grandpa forget, and I also have a way to make him remember." Zhang Yinluo's expression froze. He glanced at the whistling Sun Lang, and then glanced at the smiling Zhao Fei Huang. He angrily said, "You two are ganging up to bully me again." Young Master Wuhan's eyes flickered. He didn't expect this Sun Lang to have such a close relationship with Miss Zhao. Wasn't he afraid that this demoness, surnamed Zhang, would sink him into a cesspool? So he's just a gigolo who lives off a woman. After Zhao Fei Huang rolled his eyes at Zhang Yinluo, he turned his head to look at Sima Ping and gently said, "How about it? Can you really do it by yourself? Don't you need us to accompany you?" Sima Ping shook her head. "This matter started because of me. I've troubled everyone to spend so much effort. I don't want to trouble you anymore. If Sister Zhao is really worried, you can arrange for a few nights to send me back, and then come back to report that I'm safe. Master is very capable, so I'll leave everything to him to decide. Then, since you insist, I won't force you." Miss Zhao quietly glanced at Sun Lang and saw that the ranger was hinting at her with his eyes, so she no longer insisted. She turned her head and asked, "Then what are you going to do, Sun Lang?" Sun Lang smiled and raised his eyebrows. "Of course I'm going back and making friends with Yinluo. I haven't tried this kind of game yet. Miss Zhao, do you want to come with me? During the few days you moved away, Yinluo missed you a lot. Do you want to come and stay for a few days? A new friend has recently come to the Immortal Fishing House. You can get to know him." When Miss Zhao heard Sun Lang's invitation, her eyes lit up and she said with a smile, "Okay, okay." Zhang Yinluo angrily said, "What nonsense are you talking about? Why would I miss this kind of two-faced and hateful woman?" Young Master Wuhan's eyes flickered amidst this chattering and bickering. Really a group of people who lack vigilance. No matter what, you can't imagine what I'm here for. I've heard some very useful information. In the next 2 days, Miss Zhao seems to have left the heavily guarded Marquis Jing'an's residence and come to that place called Immortal Fishing House to stay for 2 days. Chapter 202. By the time everything was settled, the sun was already setting in the west. Sima Ping insisted that they should leave now. She said that delay would lead to... Oh, that's not right. Delay would lead to changes. Fortunately, it wasn't night yet, and Yinyuan village wasn't far from Mingzhou City. If they rode fast, they would definitely arrive in less than 2 hours. After young Master Wuhan finished arranging for his subordinates, he left with Sima Ping under the escort of several knights from Marquis Jing'an's Fu. Looking at their departing figures, this matter finally came to an end. Zhang Yinluo recalled today's exciting experience and felt as if it had been a lifetime ago. Previously, whether it was cultivating in the sect or working in Six Fan School, she had imagined what it would be like to roam the Jianghu freely and travel the world with a sword. When she decided to resign from Six Fan School and work together with Sun Lang, she had also imagined what kind of life it would be. Usually, she would do some simple missions like helping old grannies find their dogs, helping old grandpas find their grandsons, occasionally doing chivalrous deeds, fighting for justice, seeing the weak in danger, helping out, seeing the good in harm's way, punishing the evil, and promoting the good. Just like today, seeing Sima Ping being chased by strangers, she would step forward bravely and pull out her sword to help. But, the way she imagined punishing the evil and promoting the good was not like this. The real way, shouldn't it be to persevere and fight with the other party to the end, not retreating at all? After a difficult victory, resolve the misunderstanding with the other party, smile at each other, appreciate each other's talents, and have one more friend from then on? Wasn't this the way things usually developed? But the reality was not like this, Although we didn't suffer any injuries, which is a great thing, the other side is too miserable. So miserable that it makes me feel like I'm the villain. When Zhang Yinluo thought of this, her thoughts became extremely unclear. She turned to look at Sun Lang, her gaze filled with indignation. It was this bastard who ruined this old lady's decade-long dream of the Jianghua. In those stories of young heroes and heroines, those wonderful stories of the martial arts world, those great heroes who were righteous and evil, those who had a clear conscience, they had never heard of anyone who would throw feces or throw feces. Sun Lang sighed and said, "From your eyes, I can see two things. First, fellow Taoist, you seem to have gone too far. Killing someone with a sword is still killing, and killing someone with feces is also killing. We're all Jianghu bandits who love to fight. If we read as chivalrous heroes and write as mobs, what do we use to kill people? Secondly, you seem to be planning to make me the scapegoat again. You are. This is the only bad thing about you. You always like to find excuses and push the blame to me." The LV, five-pot thrower Sun Lang, said to the LV, five-pot taker Zhang Yinluo, as if nothing had happened. Zhang Yinluo rolled her eyes at him fiercely. "Sooner or later, I will die of anger because of you." Sun Lang laughed and turned to Zhao Fei Huang and said, "Miss Zhao, after you've arranged everything, come to the immortal fishing house to stay for 2 days." Zhao Fei Huang didn't ask for the reason and agreed immediately. She said happily, "Okay." But Su Qingwan seemed to be thinking about something. She took a deep look at Sun Lang and didn't say anything. Sun Lang nodded with satisfaction and glanced at Miss Zhao with a smile. He thought to himself that this smart and sensible girl really made him worry less. Just now, Sima Ping said that today's matter was caused by her, but it wasn't entirely true. In fact, the reason why Sima Ping ran to see young Master Wuhan was that earlier she flicked a drop of essential balm into the nose of this young Master Wuhan. The reason why this happened was that at that time, Sun Lang was practicing his magical powers, and this snot-nosed young master happened to emit a trace of hostility to the carriage at this time, so it caused Sun Lang to instinctively counterattack. Then, why would this snot-nosed young master show hostility to Miss Zhao's carriage? If he wasn't a Bolshevik, if he didn't have the revolutionary will to overthrow the landlord class, then he must have done such a thing because of some other deal. In other words, this group of mysterious people with extraordinary skills seemed to be targeting Miss Zhao. This guess was confirmed not long ago. He deliberately released 2 smoke bombs, both of which attracted excessive attention of the snot-nosed young master. Then why did these people come? Who was the mastermind behind this? Was it to secretly investigate the matter of the magic weapon? Or was it because of some personal grudge? Sun Lang's eyes flickered as he fell into contemplation. At this time, young Master Wuhan had left with Sima Ping, but there were still 5 people left. That old baldy with feces overflowing from his mouth seemed to be the core of this small team. At the very least, he should know something. If he was taken away and interrogated, he would definitely be able to get something out of him. Sun Lang's eyes flashed with a cold light. Although he had been away from the battlefield for 2 years, he hadn't forgotten some of his skills. It wasn't difficult to make a martial artist reveal everything they knew. Forget it. The other party's goal isn't clear for the time being, so I shouldn't be so ruthless. It's not easy for everyone, so I shouldn't use such a bloody and crude method. Moreover, the true way to show off was not to be as crude as a bulldozer, but to be as graceful as moving clouds and flowing water. While talking and laughing, one could make the fish take the bait. He recalled the gleam in young Master Wuhan's eyes, as if he was deep in thought, and a strange smile appeared on his face. "You country bumpkin, this time I'll show you the tricks of us country bumpkins." He thought about the matter again and nodded. He decided to use the snot-nosed young master as a breakthrough point. In addition to Miss Zhao's matter, young Master Wuhan also seemed to have a great relationship with Ping Dao. He just happened to have a small matter that he forgot to discuss with Ping Dao. He could take advantage of this opportunity to sound out this old man. After making a decision, he looked up at the sky and then said to Zhang Yinluo, "You stay here for a while and then go back to the immortal fishing house with Miss Zhao." Zhang Yinluo asked in surprise, "What? You don't want to go back?" Sun Lang stretched. I'm going to chase after Sima Ping. If that young Master Wu Hin has a trick up his sleeve or has some conspiracy, the little girl might not be able to resist. Zhang Yinluo asked suspiciously, Are you that kind? Is there some conspiracy? Sun Lang pretended to be sad and said, Yinluo, in your heart, is this the image I have? Okay, I won't go. We'll go back now, and then we'll discuss the matter of acting spoiled. Zhang Yinluo immediately put on a smiling face. This silly girl is really easy to understand. She smiled obsequiously and patted the dust on Sun Lang's body. Go on. I'm also very worried about Sima Ping going back alone. Go and protect her secretly and send her back. We'll wait for you to come back for dinner. Remember to come back early. This silly girl, do you think you can hide from me? Sun Lang smiled and was suddenly startled. Hey, where's old who? President who? Zhao Feihuang said. When he saw that the dust had settled and there was no more drama to watch, he left. Sun Lang, your relationship with President Hu is really good. You can even pull him over to mess around with you. The ranger frowned. This stick who ran away so fast. He still wanted to discuss the origin and purpose of the snot-nosed young master with the other party. However, he thought about it again. Although Hu Shouxin's actions in the matter of the horned tiger were out of kindness, they were still somewhat improper. After all, this matter had buried a thorn between the two of them. Thinking of this, Sun Lang shook his head slightly. Forget it. I'll investigate it myself first, so as to avoid old Hu's involvement. If he finds out something, I'll get into trouble again and lose face. Chapter 203. Sima Ping and several horsemen from Marquis Jinggan Fu rode their horses and spent more than an hour to arrive at the foot of Yinyuan village. At this time, the sky was dotted with stars and night had already fallen, but the afterglow of the sunset still illuminated this world. After she dismounted, she glanced at young Master Wuan. Along the way, she was still on guard against this person playing tricks, but she didn't expect that not only did he not have any abnormal movements and was extremely cooperative, his eyes even faintly revealed anticipation and anxiety, as if he couldn't wait to meet with Master. But even after arriving here, Sima Ping still didn't dare to relax her vigilance. After all, his martial arts were too high, so it was hard to guarantee that something unexpected would happen. Right now, his acupoints are sealed and his martial arts are sealed. Not to mention these elder brother bodyguards. Even I can easily take his life. The young girl pondered, not to mention Master. I will only report this matter to Master. Whether this young Master Wuhan lives or dies, whether he is released or not, it will all be up to Master to decide. It has nothing to do with me. She faintly felt that her master had lived in seclusion in the mountains for several years and had never talked to her about the sex matters. She was afraid that there was some ulterior motive, but she was so young. When encountering such a big matter, how could she have her own opinion? She was originally just a young girl in her teens. Ever since she became sensible, she had always followed her master to study medicine. She had never left the mountain and didn't know the sinister nature of people's hearts. She was used to hiding under her master's protection. So when she encountered the matter of young Master Wuhan, she found it hard to make a decision and wanted to push this matter to her master. The girl glanced at young Master Wuhan, who was standing obediently to the side. This person claimed to be Master's martial nephew, so she should at least meet him, right? Young Master Wuhan sensed her gaze and smiled courteously. Junior sister, let's go pay respects to martial uncle. Sima Ping snorted. It's not that easy for Master to see you. In a moment, when we go up the mountain, you wait outside first. Wait for me to go in and ask Master and let him decide how to deal with you. Young Master Wuhan smiled. Everything will be arranged by junior sister. Sima Ping's small face was still tense and stiff, and she spoke bluntly. When young Master Wuhan saw this, he could only smile bitterly, looking quite helpless. The young girl didn't say much. She asked the several knights to go up the mountain with her, to keep an eye on young Master Wuhan. Thereupon, the group of people lit torches and went up the mountain to the strange doctor's small courtyard. Sima Ping looked at the familiar grass and trees, and her heart suddenly ached. She had been scolded by the strange doctor before. He wanted her to go down the mountain and kill 100 people before he was willing to teach her the divine knife technique. That stern reprimand, those merciless words, had exposed the darkest, saddest, and most helpless reality of the medical profession in the apricot forest in front of her. She couldn't accept it for a while and wanted to go down a mountain with Zhao Fei Huang to relax. However, after leaving home for a short period of time, she had a feeling of returning home, which made her miss her master even more. When she arrived outside the bamboo forest, she turned around to look at young Master Wu Hen and fiercely said, "You wait here. If you dare to move, I'll chop you to death." Young Master Wu Hen maintained his elegant smile and nodded calmly, as if this threat was nothing more than a passing breeze. Sima Ping snorted again and ran into the bamboo forest. After running a few steps, she heard a voice coming from inside. "Great Master Ping, why don't you believe this poor Taoist's words? Quick, put your hair aside and let this poor Taoist take a good look at your face." TSK. Forgive me for speaking bluntly, Mr. Strange Doctor. Your face doesn't look too good. Quickly let this poor Taoist take a closer look and see if there's any way to resolve it. Don't be impatient. You saved this poor Taoist's life, so this poor Taoist should repay you. Don't doubt me. This poor Taoist only took a quick glance and could see that you'll definitely meet someone you don't want to meet today. This voice should be coming from that Taoist White Snow that Sun Lang had sent over. A Taoist priest with a cow's nose actually had such a effeminate Taoist name. He really had no shame. Sima Ping frowned and walked a few more steps before hearing her master's familiar voice. "Taoist priest, I saved your life because someone asked me to. There's no need for you to repay me. As for physiognomy divination, it might be effective, but it can't be avoided or escaped. It can only confuse people's hearts. This old man has never believed in such things. You'd better shut your mouth and recuperate. You can leave in 2 days." Hearing her master's familiar voice, Sima Ping's heart ached, and she shouted, "Master, master, I'm back." Hurried footsteps came from the ward. The door was pushed open, and the strange doctor's slightly stooped figure appeared. He looked at Sima Ping, and a trace of joy flashed in his eyes. He then said coldly, 100 people died so quickly?" Sima Ping heard this, and her face turned bitter. She said softly, "Master, there's someone outside? You can't save the patients, so you brought them back to trouble your master?" Although the strange doctor said this, he still said coldly, "Bring them in." "No," Sima Ping said softly. "Master, we met a person this afternoon. This person saw through my pulse reading method and said that he was my senior brother and your martial nephew." Before she could finish her words, she felt the wind in front of her. In a blink of an eye, her master, who usually walked with a cane, came in front of her. He reached out and grabbed her wrist. He said sternly, "What?" Sima Ping suddenly felt like her wrist was being clamped by an iron clamp. The pain was excruciating. Although her master usually scolded and punished her, he had never done such a thing. Under the pain, she panicked. Tears rolled down her face, and she said with a sobbing tone, "Master, it hurts." The strange doctor immediately woke up and let go of her hand. His expression became complicated. There was hatred, panic, and a trace of indignation. Sima Ping held her wrist and stole a glance. She felt that her master's serious expression had a trace of panic. It was just like when he first met Sun Lang. The strange doctor looked deeply at Sima Ping and said in a low voice, "Come with me." The two arrived at the main house where the strange doctor usually lived. After closing the door, the strange doctor said with a serious expression, "Tell me the cause and effect of this matter. Don't leave out a single detail." Sima Ping faintly felt that she seemed to have made a big mistake. For a moment, she didn't even dare to cry. She stuttered and began to tell the cause and effect of the matter. However, she didn't know that young Master Wuhen's nasal cavity had exploded because Sun Lang had flicked the essential bomb. Therefore, she didn't mention this point. However, she had personally experienced and witnessed all the explosive events that followed. After a moment, the strange doctor said with a strange expression, "There's no need to say more about the feces. That Zhang Yin Luo, was the woman that the marshal had fallen in love with? How could she be so bold and unrestrained? After listening to Sima Ping's story, the strange doctor fell into deep thought for a long time. After a long time, he slowly asked, "Then, Yuan, Sun Lang was involved in this matter from the beginning to the end? The reason that young Master Wuhan captured you, as well as the fact that he acknowledged his master, and even the fact that you brought him here. He knew all of this?" Sima Ping didn't understand what he meant and nodded. The strange doctor's expression became very strange. There was struggle, retreat, nostalgia, and sadness. He was silent for a moment and said softly, "The inheritance of the master, the 1,000-year-old orthodoxy, how can it be destroyed because of me?" As if he had made up his mind, he raised his head and said to Sima Ping, "Go arrange for that kid to stay far away from Taoist by Shui. I'll go see him in a moment and ask him some things." Sima Ping heard her master's words and couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. She nodded and turned to leave. She didn't know why, but ever since her master gave the order to cure 100 people to death, she felt that there was an invisible wall between her and her master. Such a mysterious master made her feel more and more unfamiliar, and even made her feel alienated and panicked. So she didn't say anything and hurriedly ran out. Perhaps subconsciously, she wanted to keep a certain distance from her master. The strange doctor looked at the back of his disciple, leaving in a hurry, and couldn't help but sigh softly. Unexpectedly, a laughing voice suddenly came from outside the window. "What do you want to ask him?" Hearing the tone that he would never forget in his life, the strange doctor felt his whole body turn cold, and his blood was about to freeze. The lights in the room dimmed, and in the blink of an eye, Sun Lang sat on the wooden armchair in the room. He glanced at the strange doctor and said indifferently, "What a coincidence! This marshal also has something to ask you." "Dr. Ping." Seeing this scene, the strange doctor had mixed feelings in an instant, as if time had turned back and returned to several years ago. That night, when all the generals gathered, the central tent was brightly lit, and this person was just like now, leaning on the marshal's seat. His sitting posture was neither fish nor fowl, not dignified at all, and his expression was leisurely as he asked him a question. What also didn't change was the terrifying power that was like Mount Tai, enveloping his body as he talked and laughed, just like several years ago. Chapter 204. Although Sun Lang's posture was sloppy and his tone was indifferent, the strange doctor's hair stood on end. His heart could not help but beat wildly. A few days ago, Sun Lang had said that his surname was Sun and his name was Lang. He did not want to talk about the past and asked the strange doctor not to address him as Marshal. However, he had just called himself Marshal and called him a military doctor. This was not an oversight on Sun Lang's part. He had done it on purpose. His purpose was very clear. Sun Lang had asked him a question as the marshal during the Battle of Tianyuan. The question he asked was definitely related to the past events of Tianyuan. Thinking of this, the strange doctor's heart could not help but beat wildly. He could not help but smile bitterly. He probably already knew what Sun Lang wanted to ask. He could only take one step at a time. Ping Yidao bowed slightly and said indifferently, "No matter what the marshal asks, this old man will not dare to hide anything." A cold and sharp light flashed in Sun Lang's eyes. His sword-like gaze almost solidified and pierced the strange doctor's body. Like a lion waking up from its slumber, the man straightened up. He swept away his lazy posture and frivolous expression. With an oppressive and arrogant posture, he asked the strange doctor a question that once belonged to the Empire's most powerful soldier. "Let me ask you," Sun Lang said coldly, "can your disciple's chest not grow any bigger?" The room that was at daggers drawn and the temperature dropped suddenly became even colder. Sun Lang slapped his thigh and pointed at the strange doctor, laughing. "Look at your stupid face. I haven't seen you for a few years, but you are still so dumb. You have no sense of humor. I was just telling a joke to relax the atmosphere." The strange doctor did not know what expression he should show. In the old days of the Tianyuan army, there were two types of generals. With the marshal in front of him as the leader, he was surrounded by a group of brain-damaged bastards. They would jump up and down every day, looking for trouble and fighting endlessly. They also liked to play childish pranks, which made people not know whether to laugh or cry. However, the eccentric strange doctor obviously disdained to be associated with this group of idiots. However, just like what he had said before, the group of bastards led by Sun Lang loved to suppress those who were different from them. Those serious and normal generals were their targets. There were only two outcomes for these pitiful people with normal brains. First, they would be assimilated into the same bastards. Second, they would resist in anger and be on the road to being assimilated into bastards. Sure enough, Sun Lang's bad habits hadn't changed. Suddenly, his expression turned cold. Do you think my jokes are boring? It's indeed quite boring. Is it fun to joke about something that my disciple cares about the most? However, even if the strange doctor had eaten a leopard's gall, he would not dare to say it out loud. He could only go against his conscience and swallow his anger. The marshal's jokes are naturally the funniest in the world. At this moment, the ranger was like an ugly young man who was deliberately looking for trouble. He snorted coldly and said, "Then why don't you laugh?" The strange doctor was angry, but this grievance was not worth mentioning compared to what he had endured before. Ever since he had chosen that path, all his dignity, honor, and reputation had left him. Being mocked and teased by the former marshal, his savior, was not worth mentioning. Thinking of this, Ping Yidao slowly revealed a horrifying smile. So disgusting. Sun Lang sighed. Laugh until you're like a coriander. Otherwise, his eyes turned sharp and he suddenly shouted, "Otherwise, I will exterminate the entire family of that young Master Wuhan." The strange doctor was thinking about what kind of laughter coriander was when he suddenly heard Sun Lang shout. Whether it was the voice or the content of the words, it was like a clap of thunder, causing his face to change color. His body involuntarily tensed, and the hand holding the steel staff also tightened. But in the next moment, he secretly cursed in his heart. The marshal's martial arts had shocked the Six Armies a few years ago. How could his actions escape his eyes? Sun Lang stood up with a smile. His eyes were like lightning as he stared at the strange doctor. He slowly said, "Oh, you're actually subconsciously preparing to make a move? Let me see. Oh, your footwork, the way you hold the staff, the posture of your body, and the way you exert your strength. With one look, I can tell that you're ready to fight to the death. Strange, why are you so nervous? I just want to kill the entire family of that snot-nosed young master. Looking at your posture, you make it seem like I want to exterminate your sect." The strange doctor stood there stupefied. After a moment, he slowly said, "The marshal's divine power is invincible." With one shout, this old man was shocked and frightened. "I'm ashamed that my instinctive reaction is like this. I haven't seen you for a few years, but your flattery skills are still so bad. You're far worse than Yin Song." Sun Lang dug his nose. "Forget it. I won't talk nonsense with you. I suddenly remembered something today, so I came here to ask you again. Miss Zhao said that when she was visiting her father's grave, you were hiding behind the tombstone. She said that you were about to starve to death, and asked if you could eat her father's tribute." Okay. He rambled on, and then stopped in front of the strange doctor. His expression was gentle as he said, "She said that when she found you, you were being chased and almost lost your life. The time was 5 years ago. I asked for the specific date." Ping Lao Si, you're a doctor, so you have a good memory. Can you tell me what happened 5 years ago? The strange doctor's expression was calm. He said quietly, "The marshal has concealed his identity and doesn't care about the affairs of the world. How free and unfettered you are. Why bother with this kind of old matter and involve yourself in old grievances?" Sun Lang snorted. "A group of thieves. Do they deserve to have grievances with me? Just tell me, who was the one who chased you?" The strange doctor did not answer. Instead, he asked, "Why does the marshal want to know this? Do you want to help me vent my anger?" Sun Lang said coldly, "Who do you think you are? Do you think you're worthy of me helping you?" It's just that when I said I would let you go and ordered the generals not to pursue the matter, someone wanted to kill you. Isn't this a public slap to my face? No one can protect the people I want to kill. No one can kill the people I want to let go. I want to see who is so bold. The strange doctor shook his head. I really don't know which general is doing justice for the heavens. Perhaps it's just a normal Jianghu vendetta. After all, in an instant, Sun Lang grabbed the strange doctor's collar and lifted him up. He said calmly, "First, I know your ability to escape. The person who could injure you and almost kill you is definitely not a small character in the Jianghu. The encirclement operation must have extraordinary experts, careful arrangements, and detailed information. An organization that can control this kind of resources and have this kind of action is definitely not ordinary. Second, this matter is also a top secret in the military. There are very few people who know about it. 5 years ago, my reputation and prestige in the military had reached the peak. I was also in the honeymoon period with the Empire. An organization that has this kind of action and organizational ability to encircle and kill, you must also know about the inside story and my decision to not pursue the matter." He raised his head and looked at the strange doctor with a smile. "I'm just curious. Even though I knew this, I still attacked you. Ping Lao Si, I can't help but think about the reason behind this. After all, at least for a period of time, you were my personal doctor." Chapter 205. Hearing Sun Lang's words, the strange doctor was startled at first, and then his expression changed slightly. Facing the ranger's sharp eyes, Ping Yidao slowly said, "Marshal, you worry too much. How can this old man dare to call himself your personal doctor? It's just a coincidence that I helped the marshal to recuperate your body for a period of time. That's all. This is a secret, so this old man has never dared to boast about it, let alone talk about it." The ranger stared into his eyes for a moment and said coldly, "No one asked you? You didn't tell anyone?" In the eyes of my fellow soldiers back then, I was just a doctor with an eccentric temperament. In the army back then, there were people with better medical skills than me, but there was no one with a worse temper than me. Who was I going to talk to about this? Ping Yidao sneered. "If we talk about personal doctors, Master Lu's medical skills are outstanding. He's also famous in the army for his 3 immortals, 2 hearts, sutra, and morning flower-picking pomadan. He's a peerless master of both medicine and martial arts. Moreover, he's straightforward and will seek revenge for the smallest grievance." His words hit the nail on the head, and he's outspoken when he meets people and matters. Such a straightforward person is very compatible with a marshal. Speaking of the marshal's personal doctor, it should be this Master Lu. Sun Lang suddenly said, "It sounds like you're indirectly saying that Dr. Lu is irritable, narrow-minded, sharp-tongued, and likes to scold people. Because of this, we became good friends because of the same bad habits, right?" The strange doctor lowered his eyes and said, "I don't dare. Even if this old man ate a leopard's gall, I wouldn't dare to slander the marshal." So he didn't deny that he was slandering that guy, right? Sun Lang thought of an old friend and smiled. But he immediately came back to his senses and knocked his head. "No, I was almost led away by you. Ping Lao Si, don't change the topic. Who was the organization that hunted you back then?" The strange doctor said calmly, "I really don't know. Since they dared to attack me, they must have considered the consequences of leaking the secret. If you knew about this, you would definitely incur the wrath of the marshal. They were afraid of your power, so how would they dare to reveal their identities and their origins? That's why I didn't find any valuable clues at that time. Everyone has their own specialization." Ping Dao. Sun Lang put down the strange doctor and patted his wrinkled clothes in a pleasant manner. He said gently, "Look, people like me are good at fighting, reasoning, showing off, flirting with girls, and lying. People like you are good at running for your life, performing surgeries, prescribing medicine, and making barbecued pork. So, you should just do your job well. If you have nothing to do, don't lie to me." "It's useless." He gently patted the strange doctor's shoulder. The more amiable he was, the faster Ping Yidao's heart beat. The ranger sighed and calmly said, "You see, in fact, when we meet again 5 years later, none of us will die. This is something to be happy about. So let's continue to be happy. Are you going to roar or not? So be obedient and tell me. I say, at this point, you can't possibly still have love and affection for your sect, right? He smiled and said, isn't your junior nephew outside? If you don't want to tell me, then I'll ask him to tell me. If he doesn't want to tell me, then I'll have to go to the south. There are so many people in your sect, and your senior apprentice brother's sect is very prosperous. There must be someone who is willing to tell me. The strange doctor's expression changed, and he cried out involuntarily, Marshall, they're innocent. This has nothing to do with them. Sun Lang's eyes suddenly turned cold. Is it fun to tell such a boring lie in front of me? Why don't you say it again? Say it again that they have nothing to do with this? Pingy Dao was stupefied for a moment. Suddenly, he knelt down and kowtowed heavily on the ground. Marshall, please let my sect go. Back then, when they chased me, it was only a battle of ideas. I knew that I'd sinned deeply and couldn't be tolerated in this world. So, when my senior apprentice brother killed me, I had no complaints. So, after I escaped with my life, I never thought about revenge. I know that they acted without permission and offended your prestige, but please be magnanimous and forgive them on account of their years of healing and saving people. Sun Lang looked at him coldly and snorted. The vengeful and gloomy Ping Lao Si is actually pleading for his enemies? Ms. Zhao said that when she found you, you were already on the verge of death. All the suffering and humiliation you've endured in your life, all the hard work and sacrifices you've made, almost became meaningless because of your senior apprentice brother's shallow view. Don't you hate your senior apprentice brother at all? Pingy Dao lay on the ground and pressed his forehead against the cold floor. He threw away his dignity and arrogance as a top-notch doctor and said calmly, Hate, how can I not hate? Back then, the efforts of my ancestors and I were so close to being destroyed. Just a little bit more, and the light of hope in the long darkness of the medical world would have disappeared. Just a little bit more, and there would have been countless patients who wouldn't have been able to be saved in time. However, I survived, so I have no reason to hate. Please spare their lives. They can save more people. Sun Lang coldly looked at the strange doctor kneeling on the ground. The reason he came today was not to investigate the little thief who had offended him. He could even patiently wait for a blood debt that was absolutely irreconcilable with a country. Why would he care about a few ignorant thieves who were chasing after Pingy Dao? This strange doctor, whose head was filled with medical knowledge, didn't know what the chase meant. But, looking at the strange doctor kneeling on the ground without any dignity, he remembered that he had no regrets in his life. For some reason, his mood to continue interrogating him faded. Sun Lang's interest waned. Just as he was about to say something, light footsteps came from outside. It was Sima Ping. The strange doctor trembled and raised his head nervously. The ranger felt more and more annoyed and waved his hand. Forget it. You're on your own now. The candlelight in the room suddenly dimmed, and between the changes of light and shadow, Sun Lang silently disappeared without a trace. At the same time, there was a soft knock on the door. Sima Ping's weak voice came from outside. Moss. Master. At this time, the sky was already filled with stars. Sun Lang looked up at the sky, facing the gentle night wind. He stood alone for a long time. Suddenly, he smiled and shook his head. Is my heart soft, or am I afraid? The ranger walked down the mountain. In the wilderness, no one noticed him walking alone in the night. Sun Lang felt the tranquility of the night. His mind was clear, and his thoughts seemed to be vivid in his mind. It wasn't you, Pingy Dao. Ah, you don't know why I brought up the matter of my personal doctor, do you? You're really an idiot whose head is filled with medical knowledge. You're my personal doctor who had treated me before. I asked because I wanted to know if you were the one who had revealed my body's condition and the cloud diagram of meridians. After all, you were expelled from the army 5 years ago and were closely pursued by an organization. I couldn't help but think, but it wasn't you. I just confirmed that it wasn't you. Sun Lang stopped walking and gently exhaled. Sometimes, his brain didn't work as he wished. When he thought of something, the corresponding memories would surface in his mind. He couldn't hide from them or wipe them away. Just like now, after eliminating Ping Yidao, the faces of the suspicious doctors who had come into contact with him in the past involuntarily flashed past his mind. Every person, every memory, no matter who it was, I don't want it to be any of you. I'm really scared. So, I don't dare to directly look for you to confirm it one by one. I don't want to face this kind of suspicion and evidence collection process. I don't want to face you with a nervous heart, not knowing whether to hug or draw my sword. So, he turned around and looked at the light in the courtyard. Ping Laosi, I won't make things difficult for you. You've suffered enough in your life. I won't touch your martial nephew. This will only make you more vigilant and let your imagination run wild. Moreover, this kid is still young. His knowledge of what happened in the past must be limited. Even if I torture him, I won't get any useful information. When this matter is over, I'll find some time to go directly to your sect. I'm not going to punish them. I just want to know who the person who provided them with information and made plans for them was. Chapter 206. When Sima Ping anxiously pushed open the door, her beloved master was sitting in front of a large table filled with books and papers, lost in thought. The strange doctor slowly raised his head and looked at his disciple's frightened eyes. A trace of pain flashed through his eyes as he said softly, "Ping, are you afraid of me?" Sima Ping was shocked and shook her head. No. Ping Yidao smiled bitterly. He looked at the disciple he had relied on for the past few years, and all sorts of feelings welled up in his heart. He had been alone all his life and had no relatives. To him, Sima Ping was his disciple, his granddaughter, his daughter, and even his younger sister. However, he hadn't given this little girl the peace and happiness she deserved. There were some things that he hadn't realized until Sun Lang's visit tonight. He thought back to the time when he was hunted down by a hair's breadth. He thought back to the merciless betrayal of his fellow sect members who were once as close as brothers. He thought back to their curses, their pursuit, their bitter hatred. He thought back to his own sacrifice, his abandonment, and his lonely journey forward. This was a thorny road with no future, no end, and no harvest or result. How could such tender shoulders support such a heavy responsibility? How could such a thin chest accommodate such a cold and tough heart? Forget it. He seemed to have made a very difficult decision, but after he made the decision, his whole person became relaxed. His tense face slowly became gentle. He waved to the girl and said softly, "Ping Er, come here." The girl seemed to have noticed the change in her master. She blinked her eyes, and then a look of surprise appeared on her face. The master in front of her seemed to have become more kind and gentle, and was not as strange and scary as before. She let out a huge sigh of relief. The fear and inexplicable worry of the past few days all turned into turbulent emotions that rushed out, making her unable to control herself. Like a swallow returning to its nest, she threw herself into the strange doctor's words and cried out, "Master, you scared me to death." A trace of guilt flashed through the strange doctor's eyes. He gently patted his disciple's back and murmured, "Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. There is nothing to be afraid of." Sima Ping acted coquettishly for a while before she was willing to get up. The strange doctor looked at his disciple and reached out his hand with a smile. He stroked her head and said softly, "My disciple has grown so tall in the blink of an eye. I really want to carry you on my back like before and bring you to the mountains to pick herbs." Sima Ping's face turned red. "Master, my body has long since recovered. I don't need you to carry me anymore. If you are willing, disciple will accompany you into the mountains tomorrow." "Tomorrow? I can't do it tomorrow." The strange doctor shook his head. His tone became a little lonely, but there was a hint of solemnity in it. "Pinga, tomorrow, Master will be going on a long trip." "Going a long trip?" Sima Ping's expression changed. "Then I'll go and pack my things." The eccentric doctor waved his hand and said, "No, it's not you. It's me. I'll do it alone. You don't have to follow me." Sima Ping's expression changed. Why, master? What are you going to do? Can't disciple follow you? Master has to do something that must be done. This is the only big thing in master's life. It's also the last big thing. It's master's lifelong obsession. The strange doctor's expression was ethereal. His tone was gentle and filled with endless hope. It was as if he was saying something very good. After doing this, master can completely let go and return to his hometown. He can no longer care about worldly affairs. He looked at the anxious Sima Ping and said softly, Ping-er, pack your things tomorrow and go to Miss Zhao's place to stay. With her taking care of you, I'm very assured. That day when I told you about killing 100 people, it was just a joke. You don't have to take it to heart. You don't have to worry about it. In the end, Master was too impatient and too eager for success. You just have to do it step by step. That's good. That's not good at all. Sima Ping revealed an anxious expression. Master, how can you leave just like that? How long will it take for you to come back? If it's short, a few months. If it's long, Master will be back. The strange doctor patted Sima Ping's head and comforted her. Don't worry, good disciple. Master will definitely come back. Sima Ping's heart was in a mess. She faintly felt that something was wrong, but she was still young and did not know much about worldly affairs. How could she think clearly? The shock of this matter and the reluctance to part with her master made her feel even more confused. Tears flowed down her face. Master, I've never been separated from you these few years. You suddenly said that you're leaving. Disciple can't bear to part with you. Can you bring me along? Silly disciple, the journey is long. If I bring a little girl like you, it'll be a hindrance. You'll only be a burden to master. The strange doctor patted the girl's head. He was in a very good mood tonight, so he patiently explained and did not coldly reject her. After all, he was about to leave. How could he bear to be so cold? Ping-er, even if master isn't here, I'll always be by your side. So, don't be afraid. Be like a good child and wait for me to come back. He stood up and looked around. The books and manuals that were piled up like a mountain recorded his life's efforts and gains. The medical knowledge that he had studied in his life was truly shocking and could not be tolerated by the world. However, he still firmly believed that these medical knowledge that had been condemned by the elders of his sect as heartless would eventually become solid bricks and tiles that would build an even more solid medical knowledge and save even more painful and helpless patients. This room full of books, the knowledge that he had painstakingly studied all these years, had already been memorized in his heart. At the same time, the essence of these research experiences had been recorded into a book. Tomorrow, he would entrust it to the most trustworthy person in the world. If this old man were to die in a foreign land, he could leave something for the future generations. So, the things in this room, there was no need for him to leave them, right? But when he turned his head, he saw his disciple holding back her tears. This kind-hearted little girl, this good girl who could not bear to see others sick and injured, she was a natural doctor. She was so pure and kind. The strange doctor was stunned for a long time before he slowly said, Ping-er, this room full of medical books, I'll leave it to you. If you have time, you can look through them. Not only are there medical books from our sect, there are also master's experiences over the years. Some things can benefit you for the rest of your life. Some things, if you read it, then just read it. If you don't like it, then don't take it to heart. If she heard that her master allowed her to read his books, Sima Ping would have jumped up in joy. But at this moment, she only felt an inexplicable panic and sadness. The girl wiped her tears and timidly said, What don't I like? The things that master left behind, I like all of them. Silly child, wait until you see those. Maybe you won't think that way. The master in your heart is not as perfect as you think. He is very cruel. He did a lot of bad things. He is intolerable. He is crazy. I'm sorry that I can't always be the perfect master in your heart. But if I let you see my true colors, maybe you won't miss and be so sad at this moment. He had mixed feelings and softly said, Ping-er, in the future, you must be a good doctor. Don't be like master. Chapter 207. Ping-er, you must be a good doctor in the future. Don't be like me. Sima Ping was slightly startled when she heard this. Master, you, but in the next moment, she suddenly felt a little dizzy. The girl blinked her eyes and realized that her vision had become blurry. Her body swayed twice. She looked at the strange doctor and wanted to say something, but her body went limp and she fell to the ground. The strange doctor took 2 steps forward and supported Sima Ping. As if he was supporting a priceless piece of art, he gently placed her on a large chair. Looking at the young girl's sleeping face, Ping Yi-Dao sighed softly. Yes, be a good doctor. Don't be like me. My disciple, I hope you can live a happy life. I hope you become superstitious and believe that life and death are fated. That way, you won't be unable to forget difficult diseases and patients who can't be cured. I hope you become cold-blooded and get used to seeing people die. That way, you won't feel sad or blame yourself for the deaths of patients and their families. I hope you become conservative and follow the medical theories passed down from your ancestors. Medicine is the way to save the dying and heal the injured. It involves the reincarnation of life and death. It points directly at the fate of the human body and the origin of life. Some things, once you take a wrong step, you can't turn back. I hope you can become sophisticated. Practicing medicine is not simply about treating and saving people. There are rich and poor patients, high and low, high and low. I hope you can see through the differences and helplessness in it as soon as possible and don't dwell on it. I hope you become selfish. People ask for medicine only to get rid of diseases and recover their health. However, things are unpredictable. How can everything go according to one's wishes? If there is a slight change, there will be trouble. You must learn to protect yourself. He gently caressed Sima Ping's small head, which was lying on the table. His tone was unprecedentedly gentle. This was just a blessing, not a request. The path of the apricot forest was not as beautiful as people imagined. Behind the great wish of saving lives and healing the injured, as well as practicing medicine to help the world, there's a lot of sadness and helplessness. Since ancient times, all doctors had to bear it together. Therefore, my disciple, I hope that you can live a normal life. Be a good doctor, a doctor who doesn't overstep the mark. Be a mature doctor. Don't be like me. It doesn't matter if you are a quack or a mediocre doctor. So what if your skills are limited? So what if he was a cold-blooded merchant? As long as you can live peacefully, and happily. He took a deep breath and looked at the girl's sleeping face. He shook his head and said with a smile, Ping Er, I don't know if teaching you medical skills is the right thing to do. I've been lonely all my life, without a wife or child. In the past, when I was tired, I had thought about whether I should get married and have children and let my son take over my mantle and continue on my path. But on second thought, if she gave birth to a child, how could she bear to let him be a doctor? Even being a butcher is better than being a doctor. If I have a son and he dares to pester me to study medicine, I will break his legs. But in the end, I still taught you. Fortunately, I finally came to my senses. How could I let you walk down this path with me? He smiled bitterly and said, No father, no mother, no ancestors, no sect, no heart, no feelings, no blood, no tears, no name, no surname, no shame, and no descendants. This path is the most suitable one for me. The strange doctor, back then, I chatted with the marshal by chance. At that time, he accidentally saw through my purpose. At that time, he was much more gloomy than he is now. He didn't like anyone, and his words were hurtful. So, he naturally refuted my dreams and beliefs. He said a lot of things that I didn't understand but thought were very impressive. Then, he concluded that from the perspective of ideology, the country's system, the level of science and social concepts, the possibility of modern medicine being born in the empire was completely zero. Although I didn't understand and didn't know what modern medicine was, I vaguely felt that what he said was true. But when I asked him to help me, he just glared at me and said, F***CKU, it's none of my business. Later, maybe because I pestered him too much, he impatiently told me to go to the West. He said that there was a weak traditional medicine that would bleed people if they didn't agree with you. There was a mental liberation, there was evil capitalism, and there was a group of fearless and bold mad scientists. It was the perfect place for a lunatic like me to show off my skills. At that time, I just thought it was a joke, but now, maybe I really should go to that barbarian land to take a look. My homeland can't hold me anymore. So, Ping Air, I'm going to the west. After parting today, we won't see each other again in this life. In the future, everything I do as your master will have nothing to do with you. Maybe I'll have some achievements and send my new students to bring my teachings and painstaking efforts back to my homeland. Maybe I'll die in a foreign land and be buried in the yellow earth alone with endless regrets. But all of this will have nothing to do with you. You just need to live well, and that's all. The strange doctor's hand that was missing 2 fingers quietly clenched, and the gentleness in his eyes disappeared. He had always been a decisive person. How could the tenacity, effort, and sacrifice he had made over the years be ordinary? The things he had decided on were simply resolute and decisive. His blessing and farewell to Sima Ping just now was the most gentle and wordy moment he had done in all these years. Then, there was one more thing he had to do next. Although I'm leaving, Ping Air still has to continue living in Mingzhou City. The grudges of my generation definitely can involve her. The best way is a strong killing intent flashed through his eyes as he looked outside the door. Ping Air had rashly brought that young Master Wu Hen. Whether or not he was this old man's martial nephew, he couldn't be allowed to live in this world. Otherwise, if he brought news of me back, it would definitely cause endless trouble. I don't care, but I don't want to drag Ping Air down. He raised the steel staff in his hand, and his eyes became cold and severe. He hadn't used martial arts for a long time, and had almost forgotten that doctors could save people, but they could also kill people. He pushed open the door and walked out. His steps were no longer as slow as usual. Instead, they were vigorous, and each step was powerful. The strength of a martial artist surged through this seemingly weak body, vigorous and powerful. Appearance was just a deceptive facade. As a doctor, how could he not know how to take care of his own body? Moreover, he shouldered a sacred and important mission. He had to live a long life, and he had to work hard to live. He walked towards another guest room in the courtyard, and his eyes were boiling with killing intent. If he killed this brat, the marshal would probably be angry again, but he couldn't care about anything else. Compared to Ping Air, this small matter was simply not worth mentioning. With a killing intent as cold as a blade, the strange doctor pushed open the door in front of him. Chapter 208. Pushing open the door, strange doctor flashed in. His figure was heavy, and he used his steel staff to protect himself. Although the other party's acupoints seemed to have been sealed by Ping Er's golden needles, he didn't relax in the slightest. Being overly cautious 10,000 times wouldn't be an exaggeration. Losing one's life due to carelessness was too much. But in the next moment, his expression changed. Where was young Master Wu Hen's shadow in the room? But he didn't relax his vigilance. His hawk-like eyes swept through every corner of the room. His figure moved, and in a short moment, he had already circled the room. Behind the door, under the roof, under the bed, the wardrobe, and all the places where someone could hide were searched, but he found nothing. Then his expression changed again, and he rushed out of the room like a whirlwind, running toward the main room. Pinger was still inside. This time, Strange Doctor was slightly anxious and agitated. The other party wasn't in the room, so he obviously had other intentions. But this young Master Wu Hen didn't hide in the room and wait for an opportunity to launch a sneak attack. His goal was very clear. He wants to kidnap Ping Er, to threaten me. Ping Yidao suddenly pushed open the door. Anger and worry intertwined his heart. But the moment he stepped into the room, he was stunned. Sima Ping was lying on the desk, sleeping soundly. Her charming, smiling face was slightly wrinkled, as if she had unspeakable worries. Even in her sleep, she seemed to be sad that she was about to part with her master. But it was good that she was fine. Strange Doctor's nervous mood eased, but in the next moment he knew something was wrong. Just now, he couldn't find young Master Wu Hen, so he thought the other party was going to kidnap Ping Er. His calm state of mind was immediately broken. When he rushed back to the main room with a worried heart, he found that Ping was fine, so he couldn't help but relax. This tension and relaxation caused a moment of numbness to appear in his vigilant heart. If young Master Wu Hen had been hiding here from the beginning, preparing to launch a sneak attack, then now was the best time to make a move. Strange Doctor moved at will, immediately rolling to the side and waving his steel staff to protect his body. But, to his embarrassment, no attack occurred. The main room was empty, and there was no third person. Ping Dao didn't give up. He checked the room again, but still didn't find any trace of young Master Wu Hen. He frowned, puzzled. This guy who calls himself young Master Wu Hen, why did he let go of two excellent opportunities to attack? Whether it was holding Ping Air hostage or hiding in the room to launch a sneak attack when I relaxed my mind, I might not have been able to block it. Could it be that he didn't force out the golden needles and undo the restriction Ping Air placed on him? No, if his internal energy was sealed, then the best choice would be to take a hostage instead of running away. Could it be that he wasn't actually a disciple of the sect? Coming here with Ping was just a pretense, looking for an opportunity to escape. No, it doesn't seem like it. Ping once told me that she tested him before. Our sect's mental cultivation method, mnemonic chant, skill, and experience were all good. What I taught Ping was the sect's profound medical knowledge. If he wasn't a core disciple, he definitely wouldn't be able to learn it. Strange Doctor thought of several possibilities, but in the end, he ruled them out one by one. His temperament was eccentric and gloomy, and he liked to speculate about people with the greatest malice. In addition, a few years ago, he had broken off relations with the sect and almost died. All of these made him view young Master Wu Hen as an enemy, so he never let down his guard. Now, in this desolate mountain, a disciple of the sect with good martial arts had escaped, so he couldn't relax. The enemy was in the dark, and I was in the light. What should I do? Ping Dao held his steel staff and paced back and forth in the room. After pondering for a moment, he already had an idea. Regardless of whether young Master Wu Hen left the mountain in the middle of the night to escape or was hiding in the dark to plot something, he was still alone. Moreover, he was still a captive. As long as young Miss Zhao and the marshal knew about this matter and knew that this person was deliberately deceiving them, then this old man wouldn't need to act. The marshal would play him to death. Sun Lang's figure flashed in his mind, and a trace of relief appeared on his face. If the marshal personally came, then even 100 young Master Wu Hen wouldn't be able to defeat a single finger of his. Since he had already made a decision, he had to immediately carry it out. Before Ping Dao left, he glanced at Sima Ping. After hesitating for a moment, he walked over and picked up the girl, carrying her on his back. Although the journey down the mountain wasn't far, he had to nip any possibility of an accident in the bud. What if this young Master Wu Hen made a diversion and kidnapped Ping while I was going down the mountain? He had to be cautious and not give him any opportunities. Strange Doctor pushed open the door and left with Sima Ping on his back, walking into the deep darkness of the night. In a quiet little courtyard, a certain person's sneeze suddenly sounded from a certain room. Immeasurable longevity Buddha. I keep feeling like I've been forgotten. He had walked this path down the mountain for several years, so he was already incomparably familiar with every blade of grass and every tree. Even if the moonlight was dim, Strange Doctor could still walk as if he was walking on flat ground while carrying a person on his back. As he walked down the mountain, he listened to the echoes of the night and was vigilant for any abnormalities. He only heard the low chirping of insects in the grass and the occasional chirping of birds. In the village at the foot of the mountain, the barking of dogs could be heard from time to time. It was peaceful and tranquil, just like in the past. There was no need for him to personally make a trip to deliver the letter to Mingzhou City. Since young Miss Zhao was at ease and allowed Ping to come back alone, she must have made the corresponding preparations. Other than sending a few knights to accompany and protect her, she must have entrusted a few people to stay at the foot of the mountain and be responsible for sending messages back and forth to report that she was safe. They prepared fast horses and rushed back through the night. With the reputation of Marquis Jing'an's Fu, They could open the city gates and deliver the letter through the night. Young Miss Zhao's thoughts were meticulous and had always been decisive. She would definitely find the marshal as soon as possible. As Strange Doctor thought this, he quickly walked down the mountain and entered the village. The villagers were hard-working and simple. They were diligent and thrifty in running the household. They were unwilling to use too much lamp oil. So many families had already extinguished their lamps long ago. Strange Doctor carried Sima Ping on his back and walked on the quiet village road. For some reason, his mood was not very peaceful. He felt as if he had overlooked something. From the time he decided to kill young Master Wuhan until now, only a short period of time had passed, but he felt waves of fatigue. It was as if he was fighting a battle of wits and stratagems with someone who was full of schemes. He had used up all his tricks and exchanged blows several times, but he still could not figure out the enemy situation. When they arrived at the house that Ping had mentioned that Marquis Jing'an's Fu had bought, Ping Yidao was just about to knock on the door when he heard the sound of dripping from inside. His expression changed slightly. Not good. Strange Doctor directly pushed open the door and tightly gripped his steel staff as he walked into the courtyard. Under the faint moonlight, he saw 3 corpses lying on the ground. Ping Yidao took a deep breath and then let out a long sigh. He carefully placed Sima Ping to the side, but he was not in a hurry to approach. Instead, he observed from a distance and extended his steel staff to check. After confirming that the 3 people were indeed dead, he finally relaxed and walked forward to begin examining the corpses. He thought that this guy would hide among the corpses and take the opportunity to launch a sneak attack. Was it disdain or did he not think of it? He took out a match from his bosom. After lighting it, he leaned against the light and began to examine the wounds. Everyone was injured at the throat. The weapon should have been stolen and then killed with a backhand strike. A fast swordsman. I should have thought of it. There are horses here. If he wanted to return to Mingzhou City, he needed a horse. Now, he has already stolen the horse and is heading towards Mingzhou. But why do you want to kill people? If they only wanted to snatch the horses with his martial arts, it would not be difficult for him to knock them out and tie them up. Suddenly, the Strange Doctor's expression changed. He noticed that there seemed to be faint traces of blood under the bodies of the deceased. However, the injuries they suffered were only fatal wounds to their throats. Hence, Ping Yidao stretched out his hands, grabbed the shoulders of the deceased, and carried them to the side. Then, even with his shrewdness, he couldn't help but gasp softly. He saw a line of words written in blood on the ground. The strokes were strong and forceful. Senrin's killing intent and thick malice, using the blood as a medium, assaulted his senses. Uncle Master, our game has begun. Chapter 209. Looking at the row of words written in blood on the ground, even with the Strange Doctor's mental fortitude, his hands involuntarily trembled. As expected, he knew about that old matter. He came here with another motive. But what exactly was his motive? If he wanted to kill me and clean up the household, then why did he let go of so many opportunities in the past? The Strange Doctor stood up and ran to the barn behind him. He saw blood flowing everywhere, and the 5 horses were already dead on the ground. Their huge bodies were still twitching slightly, still warm. There were no horse hoof prints in the surroundings. Looking at the leftover fodder and water in the manger, he could tell that there were only 5 horses in total that were brought here tonight. In other words, that young Master Wu Hen had killed all the horses. He did not come to kill and steal the horses, but to cut off any possibility of leaving the village and returning to the city to report. He killed the horses and then calmly left. Looking at the time, it was definitely not too long. But the village was shrouded in darkness, and the surroundings were dark and serene. Or could he chase after him? Moreover, he might not have left yet. The Strange Doctor slowly stood up and gazed at the surrounding darkness. Perhaps in the serene darkness, not far away, there was a pair of eyes filled with malice and patience, currently watching him without moving. That young Master Wu Hen, ever since they were in the small courtyard on the mountain, had been calculating his movements. The other party did not do anything and even let go of the best opportunity to strike time and time again. Yet he successfully obtained the initiative and hid in the shadows, obtaining the strategic advantage of attacking at will. In the guest room, he had given up on the sneak attack. In the main house, he had given up on kidnapping Sima Ping. Even in this courtyard, the other party had been very patient. However, time and time again, he had not acted according to the plan. Time and time again, he had exceeded his expectations. In the end, everything had changed qualitatively through the bloodletter he had left behind, causing him to completely lose the initiative. Then, he bared his fangs and used the lives of 3 people to tell him, "You can't escape." The strange doctor revealed a bitter smile and glanced at the horse corpses lying on the ground. In this small mountain village, the horses were already the fastest means of transportation, and the path to contact the Marquis of Jing'an's residence was no longer smooth following the violent deaths of these horsemen. This small mountain village had turned into a place of death, isolated from the rest of the world. It had become the hunting ground of young Master Wu Hen. He returned to the courtyard and looked at the wounds of the deceased. With such speed, such strength, and such sword skills, even if it was a fair and square one-on-one, it would be difficult for him to win. Not to mention that Ping was a burden. He glanced at his disciple and hesitated for a moment. Should he carry her to Mingzhou City and ask for help? No, I have Ping with me, but he's alone. We're more than 15 kilometers away from Mingzhou City. The night is long, and the journey is long. I have to protect Ping, but he can chase after us and attack us as he pleases. He can exhaust my energy and destroy my will to fight. Perhaps Ping, and I will be killed by his sneak attacks and assassinations before we reach Mingzhou City. Therefore, I can't act on my own, at least not tonight. Ping Yidao's expression changed several times. He had already come up with several ideas, but he rejected them one by one. The enemy was in the dark while he was in the light. Young Master Wu Hen was full of hostility and malice. The situation was unprecedentedly dangerous. He didn't know what the other party was planning, didn't know what the other party's goal was, and didn't even know if the other party was planning to kill him. This kind of feeling was not good, really not good. Forget it. I'll deal with whatever comes my way. For the time being, I'll just endure through tonight. He sighed softly and carried Sima Ping on his back. He walked out of the room, hesitated for a moment, and then walked toward the mountain. After all, it was a home that he had operated for several years. With the ingenious arrangements of the past few years, if young Master Wu Hen attacked, his home would be more suitable to resist and defend than the foot of the mountain. However, he didn't know if what was waiting for him when he went back this time would be an ice-cold sword. Also, what is this young Master Wu Hen's goal? If he wants to kill me, he doesn't need to spend so much effort carrying Sima Ping on his back. The strange doctor returned to the mountain. Although young Master Wu Hen's conspiracy and threats made him mentally exhausted, Ping Yidao still maintained the greatest vigilance and exuberant energy. For a doctor, toughness and patience were indispensable. Fortunately, he didn't lack these 2 things at all. Tonight, he only needed to endure the most difficult night. After tomorrow's dawn, there would be a lot of room to maneuver. Passing through the dark and gloomy bamboo forest, the familiar house was still lit. He carried Sima Ping on his back and pushed open the door to the main house. He vigilantly looked around. Everything was normal. When the layout of this place was planned, special considerations had been made. It was easy to defend and difficult to attack. The tools in the house, and even a part of the wall, were cast with solid iron. It was hard and difficult to be damaged by swords and sabers. Its defensive power was astonishing. Then I prepared the golden needles, mixed the spices, and took out the poison. Young Master Wu Hen, right? I'll let you know that no matter how many years have passed, no matter if I've broken off my relationship with senior brother or not, your martial uncle is still your martial uncle. The lights in the main house flickered. The strange doctor began to get busy. He mixed the killing and defensive items in preparation for the possible attack of the enemy. Sima Ping was still sleeping peacefully. Sleeping. The strange doctor occasionally turned his head and looked at his disciple's peaceful sleeping face. His nervous and worried mood eased, and he revealed a gentle and firm smile. Tonight, I must protect Ping, whether it's me or Ping, we won't be harmed in the slightest. In the guest room, another sneeze rang out. What the hell? Why do I feel an indescribable sense of loneliness and sorrow? Sigh. I don't want to stay here anymore. At night, Mingzhou City was like a giant beast sleeping in the darkness. Looking in the direction of the city from afar, there was only a hazy shadow entrenched on the ground. In the dark night, a white-robed figure fluttered over. His figure was like an immortal, and his bearing was dignified. The sleeves of his robe fluttered in the night wind. He looked indifferently at the majestic city of Mingzhou and suddenly chuckled. If Martial Uncle knew that I'd set up a large number of deceptive formations, tricking him into hiding in his house and not daring to leave, while I took the opportunity to return to Mingzhou City, he'd definitely vomit blood in anger. It was already past midnight, and the city gates had long been closed. It was impossible to pass through. His figure flickered, and under the cover of the night, he made his way to a corner of the city wall and listened to the sounds above. When the patrolling soldiers passed by, he quietly climbed up the wall like a gecko before flipping over and landing on the ground. He tidied his clothes and said in a low voice, "First, I have to get my sword back and find my companions. I need help." He looked around and thought about the map of Mingzhou that he had memorized. Then, he chose a direction and used his movement technique to rush over. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.